On a cold Sunday morning, my son and his wife showed up at the mansion I had built with 40 years of blood and sweat. They weren't holding a breakfast cake or a gift. They were holding a stack of legal documents and a look of cold, hungry anticipation. "You have 1 day to get out of here, old man," my daughter-in-law said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "This mansion belongs to us now." I stood there in silence, my hands trembling not from fear but from a rage I hadn't felt since my days in the courtroom. I didn't yell. I didn't fight back. I simply smiled, picked up my phone and made one call. 5 days later, their entire lives collapsed right in front of everyone, and they realized that waking a sleeping lion is the last mistake you ever make. My name is Augustus Freeman. Most people in this neighborhood just know me as Gus, the quiet 72-year-old man who spends hours pruning his prize-winning roses. They see the gray hair, the slow walk, and the way I talk to my dog, Duke. They think I am just a harmless retiree fading into the twilight of my life. They don't know about the life I lived before the gardening gloves. They don't know that for 30 years I was the most feared corporate merger attorney in Chicago. They don't know that I used to tear apart billion-dollar companies for breakfast, and apparently neither did my own son. Before I tell you how I brought down my own family to save my dignity, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. Have you ever been underestimated because of your age? Let's get into the story. It started on a Sunday, the kind of gray, overcast morning that makes your joints ache. I was sitting at my kitchen island, the granite cold under my elbows. I was drinking black coffee from a chipped ceramic mug that said, "Top Attorney, 1995. It was a relic from a different time, a time when I wore three-piece suits and commanded boardrooms. Now my biggest concern was usually keeping the aphids off my wife's rose bushes. The back door flew open without a knock. Brittany, my daughter-in-law, marched in. She didn't wipe her feet. She was wearing those expensive, oversized sunglasses she always wears even indoors, and holding a Starbucks cup in one hand and a thick manila envelope in the other. Brittany is 32, blonde, and spends her entire life curating a fake reality on Instagram. She looks at me the way one looks at a piece of furniture that is out of style but too heavy to move. Behind her trailed Marcus, my son, my only child. He looked tired, as he always does. He was staring at his phone, avoiding my eyes. He looked softer than I remembered. I tried to raise him to be strong, to be a man of principle, but somewhere along the way he had decided that it was easier to let his wife do the thinking. "Good morning," I said, setting my mug down. "I didn't expect company." "We aren't company," Gus, Brittany snapped. She dropped the heavy envelope onto the kitchen island. It landed with a thud that echoed in the quiet house. "We are here to handle business." "Business?" I asked, looking at Marcus. He finally looked up, but he flinched when he met my gaze. "Dad, listen," Marcus started, his voice wavering. "We have been thinking. About your health. About the house. It is too much for you. You are 72. You fell in the garden last month." "I tripped over a hose, Marcus," I said calmly. "I didn't break a hip. I am fine." "You aren't fine," Brittany interrupted. "You are forgetting things. You are lonely. And frankly, this house is wasted on one old man and a smelly dog." She tapped a long manicured fingernail on the envelope. "So we found a solution. It is called Silver Lake Retirement Community. It is top tier. They have bingo water aerobics nurses on call 24/7. It is perfect for you." I looked at the envelope. I didn't need to open it to know what it was. It was an admission form, a one-way ticket to a place where people go to wait for the end. "I am not going to a nursing home, Brittany," I said, picking up my coffee again. "I built this house. Rose and I raised Marcus here. Her ashes are in the garden. I am staying right here until I die." Brittany let out a short, cruel laugh. It sounded like dry leaves crunching underfoot. "Oh, Gus, you don't get it, do you? You don't have a choice," I frowned. "What do you mean I don't have a choice?" "It is my house. My name is on the deed." "Is it?" she asked, a smirk curling the corner of her lips. She reached into the envelope and pulled out a document. She shoved it under my nose. "Recognized this signature?" I looked at the paper. It was a quitclaim deed, transferring the property at 10 Highland Avenue from Augustus Freeman to Marcus and Brittany Freeman. At the bottom, in shaky blue ink, was my signature. I stared at it. My mind raced. I hadn't signed a deed. I would never sign a deed. I was a lawyer, for God's sake. I read the fine print on toaster warranties. Then the memory hit me. Last Tuesday, Marcus had come over. I had just come back from the optometrist. My eyes were dilated from the exam. Everything was blurry. The light hurt my eyes. Marcus said he needed me to sign some updated insurance forms for the car. He said it was urgent. He said he had handled the paperwork to save me the trouble. I trusted him. He is my son. I signed where he pointed. I looked up at Marcus. The realization washed over me like ice water. "You tricked me," I whispered. "You waited until I was blind from the eye doctor and you slid a deed transfer under my pen. You told me it was car insurance." Marcus looked at the floor, his face flushing red. "Dad, it is not like that. We are just protecting the asset. If you get sick, the state could take the house. We are keeping it in the family." "You stole it," I said, my voice rising. "You committed fraud against your own father." "It is not fraud if you signed it," Brittany said, snatching the paper back. "And you did sign it. And it is notarized. My friend Jessica is a notary and she verified it." I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Get out," I said. "Get out of my house." Brittany didn't move. She stepped closer to me, invading my personal space. She smelled of expensive perfume and arrogance. "Your house," she mocked. "Read the paper again, old man. This is our house. Marcus and I are the owners. You are just a guest who has overstayed his welcome." She crossed her arms. "We have big plans for this place. We are going to renovate. Open concept. Infinity pool in the back. We need you out so the contractors can start." I looked at Marcus, pleading with him silently to find his spine. "Marcus, are you really going to let her do this? This is where you grew up. This is where your mother died," Brittany answered for him. "Marcus agrees with me. Don't you, baby?" Marcus looked at me, then at Brittany. He took a deep breath. "She is right, Dad," he mumbled. "It is a huge house. It is worth $3 million. We can't just let it sit here gathering dust while you play gardener. We need the equity. We have debts." "Debts?" I asked. "What kind of debts?" "That is none of your business," Brittany snapped. "What is your business is packing your bags." She checked her gold watch. "We are generous people, Gus. We aren't going to kick you out on the street today. We will give you 24 hours. She held up a finger. "One day. By 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, I want you and that mutt gone. If you are still here when the contractors arrive, I will call the police. I will tell them there is an intruder. And since the deed is in my name, they will escort you out in handcuffs." "Do you want that to be your legacy in this neighborhood?" The crazy old man dragged out by the cops. I looked at her. I looked at the cold, hard ambition in her eyes. She didn't see a father-in-law. She saw a lottery ticket she had just cashed. I looked at Marcus. He was studying the pattern on the floor tiles, shrinking into himself. He had made his choice. He had chosen the wife who dominated him over the father who had loved him. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't heartbreak. I think my heart broke years ago when I realized Marcus was weak. This was something else. This was clarity. For 10 years since I retired, I had been soft. I had been gentle. I had tried to be the nice old grandpa. But standing there in my kitchen, listening to this woman threaten me with the police in the house I built, I felt something shift. The gardener was leaving the building. The lawyer was clocking back in. I sat back down. I took a sip of my coffee. It was cold, but I didn't care. "Okay," I said softly. Brittany blinked. She expected a fight. She expected yelling. "Okay," she repeated. "You want the house," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "You have the paper. You have the deed. I suppose you are right. I am just an old man. Maybe it is time I moved on." Brittany smiled. It was a triumphant, ugly smile. "Finally some sense," she said. "I knew you would see reason." She grabbed Marcus's arm. "Come on, babe. Let's go measure the backyard. I want to see where the hot tub is going to go." She started walking toward the sliding glass doors, her heels clicking on the tile. Marcus lingered for a second. He looked at me. "Dad, Save it, Marcus," I said, turning my back to him. "You have made your play. Now you have to live with it." They walked out into the garden. I watched through the window as Brittany pointed at my roses. Roses, and made chopping motions with her hand. She was planning to destroy them. She was planning to erase every trace of my wife and me from this earth. I sat there in the silence. My hands were trembling, but now it wasn't from shock. It was from adrenaline. They thought they had won. They thought they had cornered a helpless senior citizen. They didn't know that they had just handed a master strategist a reason to come out of retirement. I reached for my phone. I didn't call a moving truck. I didn't call the nursing home. I opened my contacts list. I scrolled past the doctors and the veterinarians. I scrolled all the way down to the letter P. Phoenix Protocol. It was a contact I hadn't used in 15 years. It was a number for a private investigator and forensic accountant named Saul. Saul was the man I used to call when a CEO tried to hide assets in the Cayman Islands. Saul was the man who found the dirt that nobody else could find. I pressed the call button. It rang twice. "Hello," a gravelly voice answered. "Saul," I said. "It's Augustus Freeman." "Gus." The voice sounded surprised. "I haven't heard from you since the merger of '99. I thought you were dead or planting tulips." "Roses," I corrected. "And I am not dead. But I need a favor." "Name it." "I need you to open a file," I said, watching Brittany stomp on a flower bed outside. "The target is Marcus Freeman and Brittany Miller Freeman. Your son Saul asked." "I don't have a son anymore," I said, my voice flat. "I have an adversary. I want you to dig Saul. I want to know everything. I want to know about her debts. I want to know about his spending. And Saul, I want you to look into the zoning laws for the property at 10 Highland Avenue, specifically the historical preservation clauses I filed back in 2005. I heard the sound of a keyboard clacking on the other end. "You are going to war, Gus." I took a sip of my cold coffee. "No, Saul. War implies there is a chance for both sides to win. This is going to be an eviction." I hung up the phone. I had 24 hours to pack my life into a suitcase. I had 24 hours to say goodbye to the home I loved. But as I watched Brittany laughing in my backyard, ignorant of the storm that was gathering over her head, I knew one thing for certain. She wanted the house. She was going to get the house. She was going to get every single brick, every single pipe, and every single problem attached to it. She had just stolen the Titanic after it hit the iceberg, and she was bragging about being the captain. I stood up and walked to the hallway to find my suitcase. Duke, my old golden retriever, thumped his tail on the floor. "Come on, boy," I said. "We are going on a little vacation, and when we come back, things are going to be very, very different." I didn't even get the dignity of the 24-hour grace period she had promised. I was upstairs in the master bedroom, the room I had shared with Rose for 35 years, folding a crisp white shirt into a small suitcase. My hands were still shaking from the encounter in the kitchen, but my mind was trying to find order in the chaos. I was trying to figure out where a 72-year-old man goes when his own castle walls are breached. Then the house shook. It was a low, guttural vibration that started in the floorboards and rattled the picture frames on the dresser. It sounded like a tank was rolling through the neighborhood. I dropped the shirt and ran to the window that overlooked the backyard. My heart stopped. A yellow bulldozer, massive and loud, was tearing through the wooden fence I had built with my own hands back in '92. Splinters of cedar flew into the air like confetti. The machine roared, belching black smoke into the crisp Sunday air, its metal tracks chewing up the manicured lawn. But it wasn't heading for the house. It was heading for the garden. My garden. Rose's garden. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I turned and ran. I ran faster than I had in 20 years. I flew down the stairs, skipping steps, my bad knee screaming in protest, but I didn't feel the pain. I only felt the panic. I burst through the sliding glass doors just as the bulldozer lowered its blade. Brittany was standing on the patio holding a glass of champagne. She was pointing at the rose bushes, hundreds of them in shades of crimson velvet red and soft pink. She looked like a general ordering a massacre. "Flatten it," she screamed over the roar of the engine. "All of it. I want it down to the dirt by noon." I sprinted across the grass. "Stop," I yelled. My voice was hoarse, raw. "Stop it right now." I threw myself between the machine and the flower beds. The driver, a heavy-set man in a neon vest, slammed on the brakes. The machine lurched to a halt just 3 feet from my chest. The heat from the engine washed over me, smelling of diesel and destruction. I stood there, heaving for breath, my arms spread wide to protect the flowers behind me. "Are you crazy?" the driver yelled, popping his head out of the cab. "You have a death wish, old man." I ignored him. I looked past the steel blade to Brittany. She hadn't flinched. She took a slow sip of her champagne and walked down the patio steps, her heels sinking into the soft grass. "Get out of the way, Gus," she said, sounding bored. "You are delaying the project." "You can't do this," I gasped. "You promised me a day. You said I had 24 hours. Plans change." She shrugged. "I called the pool company. They had an opening today. If we dig the hole now, I can have my infinity pool poured by next week. I have a photo shoot scheduled, and I need this ugly jungle gone." "Ugly," I whispered. My voice broke. These are Rose's roses. I planted the first bush the day we moved in. I planted the last one the day she died. Brittany rolled her eyes. It is just dirt and thorny sticks, Gus. It looks like a grandmother's funeral back here. It is depressing. I want sleek. I want modern. I want water. She waved her hand at the driver. Keep going. He will move. The driver revved the engine. The black smoke puffed out again. I didn't move. I planted my feet. I looked at the steel blade. There is something you don't know, Brittany, I shouted, desperate now. It is not just flowers. Her ashes are in there. Brittany stopped. She tilted her head, looking at me with mild curiosity. What rose? I yelled, pointing at the soil behind me. We didn't buy a plot at the cemetery. She wanted to be here. She wanted to be part of the life she nurtured. Her ashes are mixed into the soil of that central bed. If you dig this up, you are digging up my wife. I thought that would stop her. I thought that even a woman as hollow as Brittany would have a shred of human decency. I thought the sanctity of death meant something. I was wrong. Brittany looked at the rose bed, then she looked at me. A slow, cruel smile spread across her face. Well, she said, swirling her glass, I guess she is going to make excellent fertilizer for my lawn. The air left my lungs. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Fertilizer, I whispered. She turned to the driver. You heard him. Dig it up. If there are bones or whatever in there, just dump them in the landfill truck with the rest of the debris. No, I screamed. I lunged forward. I grabbed the hydraulic arm of the bulldozer. I don't know what I thought I could do. I am a 72-year-old man fighting a 10-ton machine, but I hit the metal with my fists. I kicked the tracks. I was weeping, screaming my wife's name. And then I saw the phone. Brittany wasn't watching me with her eyes. She was watching me through her screen. She was holding her iPhone up, the camera lens pointed directly at my face. She had flipped a switch. The bored socialite was gone. In her place was a terrified victim. Oh my God, you guys! She shrieked at the phone, her voice pitching up an octave. Please help! My father-in-law is attacking the workers. He is attacking me. He has lost his mind. She backed away, making sure to keep me in the frame as I pounded uselessly on the machine. Look at him, she narrated for her live audience. He is violent. He is dangerous. We just tried to do some landscaping and he snapped. I am so scared right now I think he might have a weapon. I froze. I looked at the phone. I saw the stream of hearts and angry face emojis flying up the side of her screen. Thousands of people were watching. Thousands of strangers were seeing Augustus Freeman, the distinguished attorney, looking like a deranged lunatic fighting a tractor. She was rewriting the narrative in real time. Get away from me, she screamed at me, even though I hadn't taken a step toward her. Someone call the police. He is going to kill us. Marcus stepped out onto the patio. He held his hands up, looking terrified. Not of me, but of the situation. Dad, stop! Marcus yelled. You are making a scene. Just let them do their job. I looked at my son. He stood there watching his wife desecrate his mother's grave, watching her frame his father as a criminal, and all he worried about was the scene. I let my hands drop from the cold metal of the bulldozer. The fight drained out of me, not because I was weak, but because I realized I was fighting the wrong war. I couldn't save the roses with my fists. I couldn't save my reputation by screaming. If I stayed here 1 minute longer, the police would come. Brittany would show them this video. They would see an angry black man destroying property. They wouldn't care about the deed. They wouldn't care about the ashes. They would tackle me, cuff me, and drag me away. And Brittany would win. I stepped back. I smoothed down my shirt. I wiped the tears from my face. I looked at the driver. He looked uncomfortable. He knew this was wrong, but he had a job to do. I looked at Brittany. She was still performing for the camera, fake tears glistening in her eyes. You win today, I said softly. She lowered the phone, slightly smirking. Smart move, old man. Now get out of my shot. I turned around. I walked back toward the house. Behind me, the engine roared to life again. Then came the sound of wood snapping and roots tearing. I heard the crunch of the rose bushes being crushed under the tracks. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I looked back, I would have died of heartbreak right there on the grass. I walked into the kitchen. I walked past Marcus, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Dad, He started. I didn't stop. I walked right through him like he was a ghost. I went upstairs to the bedroom. I closed the suitcase I had started packing. I didn't take much. I took 3 suits. I took my razor. I took the framed photo of Rose from the nightstand. Then I went to the closet. On the top shelf, pushed to the back, was my old briefcase. It was made of Italian leather, scarred and worn from 30 years of courtroom battles. It was heavy. Inside were my old bar association credentials, a silver pen, and a Rolodex of contacts I hadn't touched in a decade. I dusted it off. I gripped the handle. It felt familiar. It felt like a weapon. I walked back downstairs. I went to the laundry room where Duke was sleeping on his bed. "Come on, Duke," I said. The old dog stood up, sensing the change in my energy. He trotted to my side. We walked to the front door. I opened it. The cool air hit my face. Brittany was still in the backyard, probably posing next to the wreckage of my life. I stepped out onto the porch. I didn't slam the door. I closed it gently. Click, the sound of a chapter ending. I walked down the driveway to my old sedan. I put the suitcase and the briefcase in the trunk. I helped Duke into the passenger seat. I looked up at the house one last time. It looked the same as it always did. Majestic, sturdy, but the soul was gone. The rot had taken over. They wanted the mansion. They wanted the status. They wanted the infinity pool. They didn't know that the foundation of that house wasn't concrete. It was me. It was my money, my knowledge, my protection. I started the car. "You want a war, Brittany?" I whispered to the rearview mirror. "You want to bury my wife in a landfill? I put the car in gear. You just dug your own grave, and I'm going to be the one to push the dirt in." I drove away into the night. I didn't know where I was going to sleep. I didn't know how I was going to get my money back. But as I gripped the steering wheel, I felt the old Augustus Freeman waking up. The grief was still there, heavy and sharp, but it was being forged into something harder, something colder. I wasn't a gardener anymore. I was a lawyer with a briefcase full of secrets and nothing left to lose. And God have mercy on anyone standing in my way. The neon sign of the motel buzzed with the sound of a dying fly. It flickered between a sickly pink and a dark void, spelling out the word Starlight, although the star had burnt out years ago. I parked my old sedan in front of room number 9. The asphalt was cracked weeds poking through the fissures like fingers reaching for air. This was where Augustus Freeman, the man who once negotiated billion-dollar mergers and skyscrapers, was going to spend the night. I turned off the ignition. The engine sputtered and died, leaving a heavy silence in the car. Duke, my golden retriever, looked at me from the passenger seat. His tail gave a weak thump against the leather. He knew. Dogs always know when the pack has been broken. "Come on, boy," I whispered, opening the door. The room smelled of stale cigarettes and lemon industrial cleaner, a scent that tried to mask 1,000 bad decisions made within these 4 walls. I put my suitcase on the bed. The mattress sagged in the middle. I walked to the window and pulled the curtains shut, blocking out the neon flashing light that was trying to give me a seizure. I sat down on the edge of the bed. My knees popped. I rubbed them, feeling the ache of the 72 years settling into my bones. I was tired. Not just physical tiredness. It was a weariness that went down to my soul. I had lost my home. I had lost my wife's garden. I had lost my son. My stomach growled. I realized I hadn't eaten since breakfast, since before Brittany marched into my kitchen and demolished my life. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my smartphone. I needed to order some food, maybe a pizza, something simple. And I needed to check my finances. Staying in a motel wasn't sustainable. I needed to rent an apartment, buy groceries, figure out a plan. I opened my banking app. I waited for the little spinning wheel to load. I had a retirement account, a healthy one. I had saved aggressively during my years at the firm. There was over $500,000 in liquid cash and more in investments. It was my safety net. It was the money I was going to leave to Marcus when I died. The screen loaded. I stared at it. I blinked. I wiped my glasses on my shirt and looked again. Balance $0.00. I felt a cold sweat break out on the back of my neck. I tapped the screen frantically. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the signal was bad. I refreshed the page. 0. Then a notification popped up at the top of the screen. Account status closed. Funds transferred to primary joint guardian account. Guardian. The word hit me like a physical blow. Guardian. I tapped on the details. The transfer had happened 3 hours ago, right after I left the house. The authorizing signature was Marcus Freeman, acting under power of attorney. I dropped the phone on the bedspread, the stack of papers, the car insurance forms Marcus had asked me to sign last week when my eyes were dilated. He hadn't just slipped in a quitclaim deed for the house. He had slipped in a durable power of attorney, And not just any power of attorney, but one that granted him immediate control over my finances if I was deemed incapacitated. And Brittany had live-streamed me attacking a bulldozer. She had broadcasted a video of a crazy, violent old man to the world. That video was their proof. They had used it to trigger the clause. They had declared me mentally unstable. In the span of an afternoon, my son had legally stripped me of my home, my money, and my autonomy. I was a pauper. I was a ward of the state controlled by the very people who had stolen everything from me. I sat there in the dim light of the motel room. Duke came over and rested his heavy head on my knee. I stroked his soft fur. They took it all. Duke, I whispered. They left us with nothing. I felt a tear forming in the corner of my eye. It was hot and heavy. I wanted to cry. I wanted to curl up on this lumpy mattress and weep for the betrayal, for the cruelty of it all. How could the boy I taught to ride a bike do this? How could the boy I held when he scraped his knee turn into a monster who would leave his father destitute in a motel room? But then I looked at the suitcase on the floor, and next to it, the old leather briefcase. I wiped the tear away before it could fall. I took a deep breath. The air tasted of dust and resolve. I am not a victim, I said aloud. My voice was raspy, but it was steady. I am Augustus Freeman. I stood up. I walked over to the briefcase. It was heavy. It was made of Italian leather, scarred from 30 years of travel, battered by airports and courtrooms. It smelled of old paper and victory. I placed it on the wobbly laminate table near the window. I clicked the brass latches. Snap, snap. I opened the lid. Inside there were no clothes. There were no toiletries. There was a silver pen, a legal pad, and a thick leather-bound address book. I didn't keep my most important contacts in the cloud. Clouds can be hacked. Clouds can be subpoenaed. I kept them here, in ink. I flipped through the pages. The names written here weren't family friends. They weren't golf buddies. These were the names of the sharks I used to swim with. These were forensic accountants who could find a dime in a haystack. These were private investigators who used to work for the CIA. These were city planners, judges, and zoning commissioners who owed me favors. Big favors. I stopped at a page marked with a red tab. The name written there was simple Saul. Saul wasn't just a PI. Saul was a ghost. He specialized in asset recovery and digital forensics. But more than that, Saul hated bullies. I picked up my phone again. I didn't care that the account was zero. I still had a signal. I dialed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Yeah, a voice answered. It sounded like gravel crunching under tires. No hello, no pleasantries. Saul, I said. It's Augustus Freeman. There was a pause on the other end. A long silence. Gus. The voice softened just a fraction. I haven't heard that voice since the merger of '99. I thought you were dead, or planting roses. I was planting roses, Saul, I said, but someone plowed them under. I looked at my reflection in the motel mirror. I didn't see a 72-year-old man in a cardigan. I saw a predator who had just been woken up from a long nap. I need you to open a file, I said. Who is the target? Saul asked. The sound of a lighter flicking and a cigarette being inhaled came through the line. The target is Marcus Freeman and Brittany Miller Freeman, I said. My son and his wife. Family, Saul asked. That is messy, Gus. You sure you want to go there? They took the house, Saul, I said, my voice dropping an octave. They tricked me into signing a deed, and today they used a power of attorney to drain my retirement accounts. I am sitting in the Starlight Motel with $40 in my pocket and a dog. I heard a low whistle on the other end. That is cold, Gus. That is ice cold. I want to burn them, Saul, I said. I don't want to sue them. Suing takes too long. I want to dismantle them. Brick by brick, dollar by dollar. I looked down at the address book. I turned the page to another contact. A man named Jenkins who worked in the city archives. I am activating the Phoenix Protocol, I said. Saul choked on his smoke. The Phoenix Protocol, Gus, we haven't used that since we took down the board of directors at Omnicorp. That is total war. It is total war, I confirmed. Okay, Saul said. I am listening. What is the first move? I want you to pull the tax records for 10 Highland Avenue, I said. Go back 20 years. Specifically look for the filing I made in 2005 regarding the historical preservation status. Historical preservation? Saul asked, confused. What does that have to do with anything Brittany wants to renovate? I said, a small, cold smile touching my lips. She wants an open concept. She wants to knock down walls. She wants an infinity pool. So I said, leaning back in the chair. In 2005, to save on property taxes, I registered the living room stone wall and the garden layout as a protected historical landmark of the state. It is buried in the fine print of the county deed. If you touch a single stone of that wall without a federal permit, the fines start at $50,000 a day. I heard Saul start to laugh. It was a dry, rasping sound. You trapped the house, he said. You trapped your own house 20 years ago. I didn't trap it, I said. I protected it. I just never told Marcus. Find the document, Saul, and then find me the number for the city building inspector. I believe his name is Ted. I put his kid through law school. Consider it done, Saul said. Welcome back to the game, Gus. I hung up the phone. I looked around the motel room. It was still ugly. It still smelled like smoke. But it didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a command center. They had my money, they had my house, but they didn't have my history. And they certainly didn't have my brain. Brittany thought she was playing chess because she knew how to move the pawns. She didn't realize she was sitting across from the man who designed the board. I stood up and poured some water into a plastic cup for Duke. Drink up, boy, I said. We have a big week ahead of us. I walked to the window and peeked through the curtain. The neon sign was still flickering. Starlight. Maybe the star hadn't burnt out after all. Maybe it was just waiting for the right moment to shine. I took off my jacket and hung it on the back of the chair. I rolled up my sleeves. I sat down at the wobbly table with my legal pad and my silver pen. Step 1, the wall. I began to write. The ink flowed smoothly onto the paper. It was the first time I had drafted a legal strategy in a decade. It felt like breathing. Marcus and Brittany were probably popping champagne right now. They were probably measuring the walls, planning their party, laughing about the old man they had discarded. Let them laugh, because tomorrow the inspector was coming, and he wasn't coming for coffee. I wrote down the timeline. Day 1, the inspection. Day 2, the financial squeeze. Day 3, the title dispute. I wasn't just going to get my house back. I was going to teach them a lesson about legacy. You don't inherit a legacy by theft. You inherit it by honoring the builder. And if you disrespect the builder, the roof comes down on your head. I worked until 3 in the morning. The sounds of the highway outside faded into a dull hum. I was exhausted, but my mind was sharp. I finally turned off the lamp and lay down next to Duke. I closed my eyes. For the first time all day, I didn't see the bulldozer crushing my roses. I saw the look on Brittany's face when the red tag got slapped on her front door. Good night, Marcus, I whispered into the darkness. I hope you enjoy your new mansion, because it is about to become the most expensive prison you ever stepped foot in. The ink on the eviction notice wasn't even dry. The scent of my wife's perfume still lingered in the hallways. My dog's water bowl was still sitting in the laundry room, a ghost of the life that had occupied that space for 40 years. But none of that mattered to Brittany. To her, my departure wasn't a tragedy. It was a grand opening. Less than 24 hours after I drove away in my old sedan, the driveway of 10 Highland Avenue was filled with cars. Not family cars, not the cars of grieving relatives coming to check on a displaced old man. These were Porsches, Maseratis, and Teslas. It was a parade of steel and vanity. Brittany wasn't wasting a single second. She had organized a housewarming party. She called it a New Beginnings Gala. I sat in my motel room watching the feed from the hidden security camera I had installed in the bookshelf years ago. I watched as caterers carried trays of champagne and caviar into the house I had built with sweat and grit. I watched as strangers, people I had never met, people who didn't know Rose, people who didn't know me, walked across my Persian rugs with their dirty shoes, laughing and assessing the value of my furniture. It was a violation. It was like watching vultures descend on a carcass before the heart had even stopped beating. Marcus was there, of course. My son. He was wearing a suit that I had bought him for his birthday last year, but he didn't look like a host. He looked like a guest who was afraid he was about to be asked to leave. He was standing in the corner of the living room nursing a drink, his eyes darting toward the front door every time it opened, as if he expected me to burst in and scream at them. Brittany, on the other hand, was glowing. She was wearing a white dress that looked suspiciously bridal. She was floating from group to group, clinking glasses, laughing that high-practice laugh of hers. She was the queen of a kingdom she hadn't conquered but merely stolen while the king was sleeping. I turned up the volume on my phone. The audio from the camera was crisp. Babe, Marcus whispered, grabbing Brittany's arm as she breezed past him. She stopped, her smile dropping instantly. "What is it, Marcus?" "You are wrinkling my sleeve." Marcus looked around nervously. "Brittany, isn't this a little fast? Dad only left yesterday morning. His smell is still in the house. We haven't even unpacked his boxes from the garage." Brittany rolled her eyes. She pulled her arm away. "Oh my God, Marcus. Stop being such a buzzkill. We are celebrating. We are finally owners. Do you know how long I have waited to host a party in a place like this? My friends are here. My followers are watching." She gestured to the room filled with superficial people. "Look at them, Marcus. They respect us now. They see us as players. They see us as thieves," Marcus muttered into his glass. Brittany's face hardened. She stepped closer to him, her voice a low hiss. "Listen to me. Your father is gone. He is in a motel. He is history. You are the man of the house now. So start acting like it. Drink your scotch, smile at the guests, and stop talking about the old man. If you ruin this night for me, Marcus, you will be sleeping in the guest room for a month." She turned on her heel and walked away, beaming a fake smile at a woman in a red dress. I watched my son on the screen. I waited for him to throw the glass. I waited for him to yell. I waited for him to chase her down and tell her that this was wrong. He didn't. He just sighed, took a long swallow of his drink, and shrank back into the shadows. My heart didn't break. It hardened. That was the final confirmation I needed. Marcus wasn't a victim. He was an accomplice, and accomplices get the same sentence as the mastermind. I picked up my other phone, the burner phone. It was time to introduce the first guest of honor. I sent a text message to Julian. "You are on." Julian Sterling was a man I had mentored 30 years ago. He was now a retired art dealer and a historian with a reputation for being snobbish wealthy and incredibly knowledgeable. To Brittany, he was exactly the kind of person she wanted to impress. He was old money. He was class. I watched on the screen as the doorbell rang. A waiter opened it. Julian walked in. He looked impeccable in a velvet tuxedo jacket. He carried a silver cane not because he needed it, but because it made him look distinguished. He paused in the entryway, looking around the room with an air of critical appraisal. Brittany spotted him immediately. She didn't know him, but she knew the type. She smoothed her dress and rushed over. "Welcome," she chirped. "I am Brittany Freeman, the owner. I don't believe we have met, but I am so glad you could make it." Julian bowed slightly over her hand, a charming, predatory gesture. "Julian Sterling at your service, madam. A mutual friend told me that the Freeman estate had changed hands. I simply had to come and pay my respects. I have admired this architecture from afar for decades." Brittany's eyes lit up. She loved being admired. "Oh, thank you. Yes, Marcus and I just took over. We have big plans for the place. We are going to modernize it. You know, bring it into the 21st century. Julian's smile didn't waver, but his eyes drifted past her to the center of the living room, to the massive rough-hewn limestone wall that separated the foyer from the main hall. It was a magnificent wall. I had built it using stones from the original foundation of the city's first courthouse. It was rugged, ancient, and immovable. Julian sighed, walking toward the wall. He reached out and touched the cold stone with a reverence that was only half-acting. "The Great Wall of Highland," he whispered. Brittany followed him, confused but eager. "You like it?" "It is a bit rustic for my taste. I was actually thinking of knocking it down." Julian spun around. He looked horrified. "Knock it down? My dear woman, do you know what this is?" Brittany blinked. "A wall." Julian laughed, a soft, condescending chuckle. No, this is not just a wall. This is a masterpiece. This limestone was quarried in 1890. And the way it is set, it is a dying art form." He leaned in closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a state secret. "In fact, if I am not mistaken, this specific architectural feature was registered as a state historical monument 15 years ago. It is a piece of living history." Brittany stopped. She didn't hear history. She didn't hear art. She heard the word monument. And in her mind, monument meant money. It meant prestige. It meant she was living in a museum, a monument she breathed. Really? Oh, absolutely, Julian lied smoothly. Or rather, he told a half-truth. It was a monument, but not for the reason she thought. It is incredibly rare. Homes with designated features like this are, well, let's just say they are in a league of their own. It adds millions to the valuation. Brittany's eyes widened. She looked at the wall she had called ugly just this morning. Suddenly it looked like a pile of gold bars. Millions, she asked. Easily, Julian said. But of course the true value is in the prestige, owning a registered landmark. It puts you in the same club as the Rockefellers. It is a status symbol that new money simply cannot buy. He tapped the wall with his cane. You are a very lucky woman, Mrs. Freeman. To own this, it is a heavy responsibility. Brittany beamed. She was practically vibrating with greed. Yes, she said. Yes, it is. We are very honored. She turned to Marcus, who had wandered over. Marcus, did you hear that Mr. Sterling says the wall is a monument? It is worth millions. Marcus looked at the wall. He looked at Julian. He looked confused. Dad never mentioned that. Brittany slapped his arm lightly. That is because your dad was a senile old gardener who didn't know what he had. He probably just thought it was a pile of rocks. But we know better. She ran her hand along the rough stone. We are going to make this the centerpiece, she declared. Actually, she paused. A dangerous idea formed in her mind, an idea fueled by greed and ignorance. If it is so valuable, maybe we should highlight it, open up the space around it. Mr. Sterling, don't you think this wall would look even better if we removed the ceiling beams and the supporting partitions next to it? Make it stand alone, like a sculpture. Julian's eyes twinkled. It was the twinkle of a man watching a fly land on the spider web. An open concept, Julian mused. To showcase the monument. Why, that is a bold idea, Mrs. Freeman. A very bold idea. It would certainly draw attention to it. Brittany grinned. That is it. That is what we are going to do. We will start tomorrow. We will knock down everything around it. We will make this wall famous. She didn't know. She didn't know that the monument designation came with a strict covenant. It came with a federal restriction that prohibited any structural alteration within 10 feet of the stone without a permit from the State Preservation Board. A permit that took 2 years to get, a permit she didn't have. And she didn't know that by knocking down everything around it, she would be violating Section 402 of the Historical Preservation Act. A violation that carried an immediate stop work order and a fine that doubled every single day the violation existed. Julian bowed. I cannot wait to see the results, he said. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I watched on my screen. I saw Brittany pull out her phone. She started taking selfies with the wall. She tagged them, #historical mansion, #million-dollar-view, #new owners. She was documenting her own crime. She was creating the evidence for her own prosecution. I took a sip of water in my motel room. Enjoy the party, Brittany, I whispered. Drink the champagne. Dream about the millions. Because tomorrow morning the hangover isn't going to be from the alcohol. It is going to be from the realization that you just decided to take a sledgehammer to a federal law. I closed the laptop. Step 1 was complete. The bait had been taken, the hook was set. Now all I had to do was wait for her to start pulling. And when she did, she was going to pull the entire house down on top of her. The sound of a sledgehammer hitting drywall is distinct. It is a dull, hollow thud followed by the crumbling noise of gypsum and the snapping of wood lath. It is the sound of violence. It is the sound of demolition. And on this particular Monday morning, it was the sound of my daughter-in-law Brittany driving a stake through the heart of her own future. I sat in the lumpy chair of room number 9 at the Starlight Motel. The curtains were drawn to block out the harsh morning sun that highlighted the stains on the carpet. On the small, wobbly table in front of me, my laptop was open. The screen was glowing with the feed from the hidden camera in my living room. I took a sip of the motel coffee. It tasted like burnt rubber and regret, but I drank it anyway. I needed the caffeine. I needed to be sharp, because the show I had been producing for the last 24 hours was about to reach its first intermission. On the screen, my living room looked like a war zone. Dust hung in the air like a thick fog. Furniture, my antique mahogany sideboard, the leather armchairs Rose had loved, had been shoved haphazardly into the corners covered in plastic tarps. In the center of the room stood Brittany. She was wearing a pink hard hat that looked ridiculous on her paired with a designer tracksuit. She was holding a tablet pointing and shouting at a crew of 3 men. They were day laborers, likely hired from the parking lot of the local hardware store for cash. They didn't have permits, they didn't have blueprints, they just had sledgehammers and a boss who was screaming about an open concept. "Tear it all down!" Brittany yelled, her voice tinny through the laptop speakers. "I want this entire partition gone. We need to expose the stone wall, mister." Sterling said, "It is a monument, so I want it standing alone. I want it to pop." I watched as one of the workers swung his hammer into the supporting wall that separated the hallway from the dining room. Bang! Plaster rained down. I didn't wince. I didn't cry. A week ago, watching someone destroy my home would have broken me. But today, every swing of that hammer was music to my ears. Every crack in the drywall was a line of code in the program I was running to destroy them. Marcus was standing near the kitchen entrance holding a cup of coffee, looking pale. "Brittany," he shouted over the noise, "are you sure about this? That looks like a load-bearing wall. Maybe we should wait for an engineer." Brittany spun around, her face flushed with the excitement of destruction. "We don't need an engineer. Marcus, engineers take weeks. Engineers cost money. I want this done for the photo shoot on Friday. Just look at it. Once this clutter is gone, that limestone wall is going to look like $1 million. Literally." She turned back to the workers. "Keep going. Don't stop until I can see the kitchen from the front door." I leaned back in my chair and smiled. A cold, predatory smile. Brittany thought she was increasing the property value. She thought she was uncovering a masterpiece. What she didn't know, what Marcus didn't know, was that she was committing a federal crime. 20 years ago, back in 2005, I was looking for a way to reduce my property taxes. The estate tax was killing me. So I used a little-known legal loophole available in our historic district. I applied for a facade easement, but I didn't just apply for the exterior. I registered the interior limestone structure, the very wall Brittany was currently obsessing over, as a historic architectural feature with the State Preservation Board. It was a brilliant move at the time. It saved me $15,000 a year in taxes. But it came with a catch, a very strict, very legally binding catch. Rule number 1 of the Preservation Covenant: no structural alterations, modifications, or demolition of any supporting structures within 15 feet of the registered feature without a certificate of appropriateness from the Federal Department of the Interior. Obtaining that certificate takes 18 months of hearings, architectural reviews, and public comments. Brittany had been the owner for less than 48 hours. She didn't have a certificate. She didn't even have a building permit from the city. She was hacking away at a federally protected structure with a sledgehammer and an ego. I watched another chunk of wall fall. I saw the wooden studs exposed. They were old-growth pine, strong and true, and they were being sawed in half by a man who didn't know he was desecrating a landmark. It was time. I closed the laptop partially, just enough to keep the audio running in the background. I pulled my old leather address book toward me. I opened it to the letter T. Ted Henderson. Ted wasn't just the director of city planning. Ted was a kid I had plucked out of a mailroom 30 years ago. I had paid for his night school. I had written his recommendation letter for law school. I had mentored him when everyone else said he was too rough around the edges. Ted owed me his career. And Ted was a man who took his job very seriously. I dialed the number. It rang once. City Planning Director's Office. A secretary answered. "I need to speak to Ted," I said. My voice was deep, authoritative. The voice of Augustus Freeman, Esquire. "I am sorry, Mr. Henderson is in a meeting. Can I take a message?" "Tell him it is Augustus Freeman," I said. "Tell him the phoenix is rising." There was a pause, then the sound of a hold button. 10 seconds later, Ted was on the line. "Gus, is that you?" "My God, I heard rumors you retired. I heard you moved to a nursing home. Rumors of my demise have been greatly exaggerated, Ted," I said smoothly. "I am fine, Ted, but my house isn't." "What do you mean I am currently watching a live feed of my former residence at 10 Highland Avenue," I said, keeping my tone professional. "As you know, the interior limestone formation is a registered Class A historical feature under the 2005 Preservation Act." "I know the house well, Gus," Ted said. "It is on the registry." "Why?" "Because Ted, the new owners, are currently using unlicensed contractors to demolish the structural supports surrounding the feature. They are attempting an open concept renovation, without a permit, without a review. and from what I can see, they are about 2 minutes away from compromising the integrity of a landmark that belongs to the history of this state. I heard the sound of a chair scraping back. I heard the rustle of paper. They are doing what Ted asked, his voice dropping. They are taking sledgehammers to it, Ted, right now. Gus, that is a felony violation of the zoning code. That is a desecration of a protected site. I know, I said softly. That is why I am calling you. I tried to tell them, Ted, but you know how young people are. They think history is just something you filter on Instagram. They don't respect the foundation. I let out a long, weary sigh, a sigh that sounded like a heartbroken old man, not a vengeful lawyer. It breaks my heart, Ted. Rose loved that wall. To see it destroyed like this, to see them flaunt the law. Say no more, Gus, Ted said. His voice was hard now. Official. I am looking at the system. No permits have been filed for that address, not even a dumpster permit. He was typing furiously. I am dispatching a code enforcement team now, and Gus, I am sending the chief inspector. I am putting a red tag on that property so fast their heads will spin. Thank you, Ted, I said. Just do what is right. I will, Gus. I owe you that much. I hung up the phone. I leaned back and looked at the laptop screen. The dust was thicker now. Brittany was coughing, waving her hand in front of her face, but she looked delighted. She was pointing at the jagged hole in the wall. See? She yelled at Marcus. It opens up the whole room. It is going to be magnificent. Marcus looked less convinced. He was looking at the ceiling where a small crack had started to form in the plaster. Brittany, he said nervously, is the ceiling supposed to sag like that? Don't be paranoid, Brittany snapped. It is just settling. Old houses settle. I took another sip of coffee. She was right. Old houses do settle, especially when you remove the legs they are standing on. But the house wasn't the only thing that was about to settle. The law was about to settle on them like a ton of bricks. I checked my watch. The city planning office was only 10 minutes away from my house. Ted didn't waste time. I watched the screen. The workers were taking a water break. Brittany was taking selfies in the debris, posing with a sledgehammer making a duck face. She looked like a conqueror standing atop the ruins of a defeated civilization. She had no idea that the dust she was breathing wasn't just plaster. It was the smoke from a fuse she had lit herself. I started to pack my bag. I wouldn't be staying at the motel much longer. Once the red tag went up, once the fines started rolling in, the dynamic was going to shift. The predators were about to become the prey. I looked at Duke, who was sleeping on the floor. Wake up, boy, I said. The show is about to get good. I turned the volume up on the laptop. I wanted to hear the doorbell ring. I wanted to hear the exact moment when Brittany's open concept fantasy collided with the closed door of the federal government. The destruction of the wall was painful to watch. Yes, it was my home. But sometimes to build a new justice, you have to let the old structures fall. And if Brittany wanted an open concept, I was going to give her one. I was going to open up her life, her finances, and her arrogance for the whole world to see. The doorbell rang. I leaned forward. Showtime. The doorbell didn't just ring. It commanded attention. It cut through the roar of the sledgehammers and the cloud of drywall dust like a siren. I sat in my motel room leaning closer to the laptop screen, watching the feed from the hidden camera in the foyer. The timestamp read 9:15 in the morning, right on schedule. Inside the house, Brittany was busy directing the destruction. She was shouting over the noise, pointing at a jagged hole in the limestone wall where the workers had just managed to dislodge a massive 100-year-old stone. Get that debris out of here, she yelled, coughing into her elbow. I want a clean shot for the Instagram reveal, Marcus. Where is my latte? Marcus was in the kitchen, looking pale and useless, holding a cup of coffee that was shaking in his hand. He looked like a ghost haunting his own life. The doorbell rang again, longer this time, impatient. Brittany groaned. She threw her hands up in the air, creating a small cloud of white dust. Oh my God, who is that? Probably the neighbors complaining about the noise. Jealous old bats. Marcus, get the door. Marcus hesitated. He looked at the front door as if it were a portal to hell. I said, get the door, Brittany shrieked. Marcus shuffled forward. He unlocked the heavy oak door and pulled it open. Standing on the porch wasn't a neighbor. It was a phalanx. 4 men in city uniforms wearing bright yellow safety vests and hard hats. In the front stood Ted Henderson, the director of city planning. He wasn't smiling. He held a clipboard against his chest like a shield. Behind him stood 2 police officers with their arms crossed. Can I help you? Marcus stammered, blocking the doorway with his body. Ted Henderson didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped forward, forcing Marcus to retreat into the foyer. The other officials followed, their boots heavy on the marble floor. "Owner of the property?" Ted asked. His voice was flat, professional, and devoid of any warmth. Brittany stomped over her heels, clicking aggressively. She adjusted her pink hard hat, trying to look authoritative. "I am the owner," she announced. "Brittany Freeman, and you are interrupting a very expensive renovation." "Who are you?" Ted looked at her. He looked at the workers who had frozen mid-swing. He looked at the pile of rubble on the floor, and then he looked at the hole in the limestone wall. His face went pale. He actually flinched. "Stop!" Ted shouted. His voice echoed off the vaulted ceiling. "Stop! Work immediately! Put the hammers down! Now!" The workers dropped their tools. They knew that tone. They knew what those uniforms meant. They started backing away toward the kitchen door, eyes wide. "Excuse me." Brittany stepped into Ted's face. "You can't talk to my crew like that. This is private property. I am an influencer with 2 million followers, and I will ruin you if you don't get out of my house." Ted ignored her threat. He walked past her to the wall. He ran a hand over the jagged edge where the stone had been removed. He shook his head, a look of genuine pain on his face. "You have breached the structural integrity of a Class A historical feature," he said softly. He turned back to Brittany. He pulled a large neon orange sticker from his clipboard. It was the size of a dinner plate. It had the words, "Stop Work Order," printed in bold black letters. He slapped it onto the front window. The sound of the adhesive sticking to the glass was louder than the shouting. "Mrs. Freeman," Ted said, turning to face her. "I am Ted Henderson, Director of Planning. You are in violation of Federal Code 402 and State Zoning Ordinance 18. You are performing unauthorized demolition on a protected historical landmark without a permit." Brittany laughed. It was a nervous, high-pitched sound. "Historical landmark. It is just a wall. My friend Julian said it was valuable, so we are opening it up. We are improving it. You are destroying it," Ted corrected her. "This limestone formation is registered with the Department of the Interior. It is protected by a facade easement. Your father-in-law filed 20 years ago. Touching it without a federal review is a felony." Brittany's smile faltered. "Felony?" Ted pulled a pen from his pocket. He started writing on a pink citation slip. "I am issuing a red tag immediately. All work stops now. If anyone touches a hammer again, they go to jail." He tore the slip off and handed it to her. "This is your citation." Brittany looked at the paper. Her eyes widened. $50,000, she screamed. "You are fining me. $50,000. That is the initial penalty for the unauthorized alteration," Ted said calmly. "Plus $5,000 for every day the violation continues." He wasn't done. He pulled out another sheet of paper. "And this is the remediation order. You have 7 days to hire a certified historical architect to assess the damage and restore the wall to its original condition. Not a contractor. A certified preservationist." Brittany stared at him. "Restore it. But I want an open concept." "I don't care what you want," Ted said, his voice dropping to a growl. "You bought a landmark, Mrs. Freeman. You don't own the history. You are just the custodian. If you don't have a restoration plan on my desk by next Monday, the city will condemn the property and seize the title." He signaled to the police officers. "Gentlemen, clear the site. Escort these unlicensed workers off the premises." The room erupted into chaos. The workers grabbed their tools and ran out the back door, terrified of being deported or arrested. The police officers moved through the house, checking for other violations. Brittany stood in the center of the debris, clutching the pink slip. She was shaking. She looked at the hole in the wall. She looked at the orange sticker on the window. She turned to Marcus. "Marcus, do something." Marcus was leaning against the staircase railing, looking like he might vomit. "What can I do, Brittany?" "It is the city. Pay them," she shrieked. "Just pay the fine. Get your checkbook out and make him go away. We can't have a stop work order. The photo shoot is on Friday." She shoved the citation into Marcus's chest. "Write him a check for $50,000, right now." Marcus looked at the paper. He didn't move to get his checkbook. He just stared at the number. Brittany waited. When he didn't move, she shoved him again. "Marcus, did you hear me? Pay the man. We have your dad's retirement money. We have the cash from the joint account. Just pay it." Marcus looked up. His eyes were red. He looked at Ted, who was watching them with crossed arms. Then he looked at his wife. "I can't," Marcus whispered. "What do you mean you can't?" Brittany hissed. Don't be stingy. We have over $600,000 in that account. No, Marcus said. His voice was barely audible. No, we don't. The room went silent. The dust motes danced in the light of the chandelier. Brittany froze. Her face went from angry to confused. What are you talking about? Your dad had a lifetime of savings. We transferred it yesterday. I saw the balance. Marcus took a step back, putting distance between himself and her claws. I spent it, Brittany. Brittany laughed. A confused disbelief laugh. You spent $600,000 in one day on what, a rocket ship? Marcus looked down at his shoes. The Porsche, he mumbled. Brittany blinked. The Porsche. The one you leased for me, I didn't lease it, Marcus said, his voice trembling. You said you wanted it. You said leases were for poor people. You said owners buy cash. So, I bought it. Brittany stared at him. Okay, that is $100,000. Where's the rest? And the debt, Marcus continued, the words spilling out of him like vomit. The credit card debt you ran up last year, the $50,000 for your brand launch party, the $20,000 for the trips to Cabo. I paid it all off. I wanted us to be debt-free. I thought we had the house equity to fall back on. He looked up at her, pleading. And I put a deposit down on the infinity pool. A huge deposit. Because you wanted it rushed. Brittany's face turned a shade of purple I had never seen before. So how much is left? She whispered. How much is in the account right now? Marcus swallowed hard. About $4,000. The scream that came out of Brittany's mouth wasn't human. It was the sound of a banshee. You idiot, she roared. You stupid, useless man. You spent all the liquid cash, all of it. I did it for you, Marcus yelled back, finally finding a tiny shred of a backbone. You wanted the car. You wanted the pool. You told me to handle it. I told you to handle it. Not bankrupt us, she screamed. She threw the pink citation at his face. The paper fluttered to the floor, landing in the dust. So how are we going to pay this $50,000 fine, Marcus? How? Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't answer. Ted Henderson cleared his throat. The sound was sharp and commanding. This sounds like a domestic issue, Ted said, adjusting his glasses. But the city doesn't accept payment plans on red tag violations. You have 7 days to pay the fine and submit the restoration blueprints. He turned to leave. He stopped at the door and looked back at the hole in the wall. And Mrs. Freeman, if I were you, I wouldn't try to sell the Porsche. The city places an automatic lien on all personal assets when a federal preservation violation is issued. You can't sell anything until this wall is fixed. He walked out, the police officers following him. The heavy front door clicked shut. I sat in my motel room watching the screen. Brittany and Marcus were standing in the ruins of my living room. The silence was heavy. The dust was settling on their expensive clothes. Brittany looked at Marcus. There was no love in her eyes. There was only disgust. Get out of my sight, she hissed. Marcus flinched. Brittany, please. I said get out. Go find money. Go sell blood. I don't care. Fix this. She kicked a piece of drywall across the room. It shattered against the fireplace. I took a slow sip of my coffee. It was cold, but it tasted sweet. $50,000. And a frozen asset list. They were broke. They were sitting in a multi-million-dollar mansion and they couldn't afford to buy a pizza. But the best part, the restoration. To fix that wall, to hire a certified preservation architect would cost 3 times the fine. They needed $200,000 cash within a week, and I knew exactly where they would go to get it. I closed my laptop. Phase 1 was complete. The house was a prison, the bank account was empty, and the rats were turning on each other. It was time for Phase 2. It was time for the sharks. I picked up my phone and dialed Saul. They took the bait, I said. The red tag is up. Good, Saul said. I have the hard money lender queued up. His name is Vinny. He charges 20% interest a month. And he doesn't ask for credit checks. Send him in, I said. I hung up. I looked at Duke. You know, boy, I said, scratching his ears. I almost feel bad for them. Duke yawned. Almost, I added. I stood up and walked to the window. The sun was setting over the motel parking lot. It was going to be a long, cold night in the mansion on Highland Avenue, and it was going to be the first of many. They wanted an open concept. Well, I had just opened the gates of hell, and the devil was coming to collect. Desperation has a smell. It smells like sour sweat, stale coffee, and the metallic tang of fear. I could smell it radiating through the screen of my laptop as I watched my son and his wife pacing in the kitchen of the mansion I built. It was Tuesday morning. The red tag from the city was still slapped on the front window, a neon orange badge of shame. The construction crew was gone. The silence in the house was deafening, broken only by the click of Brittany's heels as she marched back and forth like a caged tiger. I sat in my motel room eating a bagel that tasted like cardboard. My phone lay on the table next to the laptop connected to Saul, my private investigator. We were silent partners in this surveillance operation, watching the rats scurry in the maze we had constructed. "We need money," Marcus Brittany hissed. She slammed her hand on the granite countertop. "We need $50,000 for the fine and another $100,000 to start the restoration. If we don't get that red tag off by Friday, the photo shoot is canceled. Do you know what that means? It means I lose the sponsorship. It means I am humiliated." Marcus was sitting on a bar stool, his head in his hands. He looked 10 years older than he did on Sunday. "I told you," Brittany, Marcus groaned. "The cash is gone. The Porsche took the last of the liquid assets. We are house rich and cash poor. The banks won't touch us with a $50,000 city lien on the property. I already called Chase. I called Wells Fargo. As soon as they saw the red tag in the system, they laughed at me." Brittany stopped pacing. She looked at him with eyes that were cold and calculating. "Who said anything about banks?" she asked softly. Marcus looked up. "What banks are for people who have time," Brittany said. "We don't have time. We need a bridge loan." "Hard money." Marcus went pale. "Hard money, Brittany. Those are sharks. The interest rates are 20% a month. If you miss a payment, they don't send a letter. They send a guy with a baseball bat." "I don't care," Brittany screamed. Her composure cracked completely. "I am not losing this house. I am not losing my reputation. Find a lender, Marcus. Find one who doesn't ask questions." I watched Marcus pull out his phone. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely type. I knew exactly who he was going to call. Saul had made sure that a certain flyer for Omega Capital was left in their mailbox yesterday. Omega Capital wasn't a bank. It was a front for a man named Vinny, a loan shark who operated in the gray areas of the law where desperate people go to drown. I picked up my phone. "Saul, are you seeing this?" "I see it." "Gus." Saul's gravelly voice came through the speaker. "He is dialing Vinny right now." "Let him," I said. 20 minutes later, a black Range Rover pulled into my driveway. A man stepped out. He was wearing a suit that was too shiny and a watch that was too big. Vinny. He carried a briefcase that looked like it could hold a submachine gun. He walked into the house without knocking. Brittany greeted him like he was a savior. She poured him a drink from my scotch collection. So Vinny said, sitting down at my kitchen table, "You need 150 grand. Fast." "Yesterday," Brittany said, flashing a charming smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We have the equity. The house is appraised at $3 million. We just have a little cash flow issue with the city." Vinny laughed. A dry hacking sound. "I know about the red tag. My guys drove by. That is a $50,000 headache. But I am not a building inspector. I am a businessman." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "I will lend you the 150, but the terms are steep, 25% interest compounded monthly, and I take a first position lien on the deed. You default, I own the house by next Tuesday." Brittany didn't even blink. "Done. Where do we sign?" Vinny held up a hand. "Not so fast, sweetheart. I ran a title search on the way over." My heart skipped a beat in the motel room. This was the moment. This was the trapdoor. "The title search shows a transfer pending," Vinny said, looking at a document on his phone. "The quitclaim deed was filed, yes, but the county clerk is backed up. The digital registry still lists the primary owner as Augustus Freeman." He looked at Marcus. "You are Marcus Wright, the son?" "Yes," Marcus said, his voice a whisper. "Technically, until the county updates the ledger, I need the signature of the person currently listed on the master file to secure the lien," Vinny said. "I need Augustus Freeman to sign this loan document, or I need a notarized power of attorney specifically authorizing this loan." The room went silent. Brittany looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at Vinny. "My dad, he is not available," Marcus stammered. He is traveling." Vinny shrugged and started to put the paper back in his briefcase. "Then no deal. I can't lend against a house if the owner isn't in the room. I don't do unsecured loans." "Wait!" Brittany shouted. She grabbed Vinny's arm. "He is old," Brittany said quickly. "He is senile. He gave Marcus power of attorney. We have the papers." She ran to the counter and grabbed the stack of documents they had used to kick me out. She fumbled through them until she found the power of attorney form Marcus had tricked me into signing last week. Here, she said, slamming it on the table. General Durable Power of Attorney. It gives Marcus the right to sign for him in all financial matters. Vinny looked at the paper. He squinted. This looks standard. He grunted. But for a hard money loan of this size, I usually require the principal to sign the note directly. It closes the loophole on fraud claims later. He looked at Marcus. Unless what? Brittany asked. Unless Augustus Freeman signed it already. Vinny said, a sly grin spreading across his face. He slid the loan document across the table toward Marcus. He tapped the signature line. I mean, if he was here, he would sign it right, to help his son. Marcus stared at the line. He knew what Vinny was asking. Vinny was asking him to commit a felony. He was asking him to forge my signature, not just use the power of attorney, which was legal but morally bankrupt, but to physically sign my name to expedite the loan, to pretend I was there, to pretend I approved of this shark taking a bite out of my legacy. I sat forward in my motel chair. Don't do it, son, I whispered to the screen. Be a man. Walk away. Don't cross that line. Stealing my house was a civil matter. Forging a signature on a federally regulated lending document. That was wire fraud. That was identity theft. That was prison time. Marcus picked up the pen. His hand was trembling. He looked at Brittany. Brittany glared at him. Her eyes were hard flint. Sign it. Marcus, she mouthed. Do it. Marcus looked at Vinny. Vinny just raised his eyebrows, checking his watch. I don't have all day, kid. Marcus took a deep breath. He looked at the ceiling as if asking for forgiveness from a god he hadn't spoken to in years. Then he looked down at the paper. He pressed the pen to the page. And he signed. Augustus Freeman. He didn't sign Marcus Freeman. He signed my name. He tried to copy my looping script, the signature he had seen on birthday cards and report cards his entire life. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. It was a physical ache. The last thread of hope I had held for my son snapped. He hadn't just made a mistake, he had made a choice. He had chosen to become a criminal to satisfy the greed of a woman who didn't love him. Vinny picked up the paper. He didn't check the signature against a reference. He didn't care. He just wanted the paper trail. Beautiful, Vinny said. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. $50,000 in cash for your fine. The rest will be wired to your account by 5 p.m. He stood up and buttoned his jacket. Pleasure doing business with you, Augustus, Vinny said to Marcus with a wink. Remember, first payment is due in 30 days. Don't be late. I hate being late. Vinny walked out. The door closed. Brittany let out a squeal of delight. She grabbed the envelope of cash and tore it open. She threw the bills into the air like confetti. We did it, she screamed. We are saved. Marcus didn't celebrate. He slumped onto the bar stool, burying his face in his hands. He was shaking. I just forged his name. Brittany, he whispered. I just committed a crime. Brittany laughed, gathering the money from the floor. Oh, stop it. You were acting as his agent. It is basically the same thing. Besides, who is going to tell your dad is in a nursing home or a motel somewhere? He will never know. She kissed him on the cheek. A cold, distracted kiss. You were a real man today, Marcus. You did what had to be done. Now go pay the city. I need to call the architect. She skipped out of the room, clutching the cash. Marcus sat alone in the kitchen. He looked at his hand, the hand that had just signed away his soul. He rubbed it on his pants as if trying to wipe away the ink. I watched him for a long time. Saul's voice came through the phone, soft and serious. Did you see that, Gus? I saw it, Saul. He crossed the line, Gus. That is a felony. If we report this to the fraud division... Not yet, I said. My voice was calm, but inside I was a storm. Not yet, Saul. Why? Because a trap works best when the animal thinks it is safe, I said. He thinks he got away with it. He thinks the money fixed the problem. I looked at the image of my son alone in the shadows of the mansion. Let him spend the money, Saul. Let them start the repairs. Let them dig themselves deeper. When the debt comes due and when Vinny comes back, that is when we reveal the signature. But Gus, that is your son. I closed the laptop. My son died the moment he put that pen to paper, Saul. That man in the kitchen. That is just a thief living in my house. I stood up and walked to the motel window. The sun was going down, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple. They had the money. They had the arrogance. but they had forgotten one thing. Vinny wasn't the only shark in the water. And unlike Vinny, I wasn't interested in their money. I was interested in their total, absolute destruction. I walked to the mirror and adjusted my tie. "Sleep well, Marcus," I whispered, "because the nightmare is just beginning." The rain was falling hard against the plate glass window of O'Malley's diner, blurring the neon lights of the city into streaks of red and blue. It was a fitting backdrop for a meeting that felt less like a family reunion and more like a funeral. I sat in a booth near the back, nursing a cup of coffee that was surprisingly good. Black and strong, just the way I liked it. Duke was waiting in the car outside, curled up on the passenger seat with the window cracked open. He was the only loyal thing I had left in this world. I checked my watch. Marcus was 10 minutes late. That was typical. Even as a boy, he was always running behind, always dragging his feet, always hoping that if he waited long enough, the problem would solve itself or someone else would fix it for him. I used to think it was just a quirk of his personality. Now I realized it was a character flaw, a fatal one. When the bell above the door finally jingled, I didn't turn around immediately. I watched his reflection in the dark window. He looked terrible. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His tie was loosened, and there were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and a guilty conscience. He scanned the room looking nervous, like a man expecting to be ambushed. When he saw me, he hesitated, then took a deep breath and walked over. "Hi, Dad," he said, sliding into the booth opposite me. He didn't look me in the eye. He looked at the sugar dispenser. "Hello, Marcus," I said. My voice was calm. It was the voice I used to use during cross-examinations when I knew the witness was lying before they even opened their mouth. He signaled the waitress. "Just water, please." He looked at me then. He tried to smile, but it was a weak, trembling thing. "I am glad you agreed to meet Dad. I have been worried about you. Brittany said you were at a motel that is no place for you." I took a sip of coffee. "It is clean, Marcus. And the rent is paid." "That is more than I can say for some people." He flinched. He knew I knew about the financial mess. He knew about the red tag. But he didn't know that I knew about the forged signature. Not yet. "Dad, look," he started leaning forward, his hands clasping together on the table. "About Sunday, about the house. Things got out of hand. Brittany. She is just passionate. She wants to build a future for us. She didn't mean to be so harsh. She bulldozed your mother's garden." "Marcus," I said quietly. "She live-streamed it." I know," he said quickly. "And that was wrong. I told her that. But Dad, you have to understand the pressure she is under. Her brand. It is her livelihood. And now with this stop work order from the city, she is falling apart. She is crying all the time." He looked at me, his eyes pleading. He was trying to use my love for him as a lever. He thought I was still the soft old man who would fix his bike when he crashed it. "I am sorry, Dad," he whispered. "I really am. I never wanted it to be like this." I looked at him. For a second, just a split second, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that my son was still in there somewhere, buried under the layers of greed and his wife's influence. "So why are we here, Marcus?" I asked. "If you are sorry, did you bring the deed? Did you bring the papers to reverse the transfer?" Marcus froze. He looked down at his hands. "Well, no," he stammered. "We can't do that. The loan, the plans are already in motion. We can't go back now. Then why are you here?" He swallowed hard. He took a sip of water, his hand shaking so much the ice rattled against the glass. "We have a problem, Dad. A cash flow problem. The city fine. The restoration costs. It is adding up fast. And the loan we got. The interest is high." He looked up, desperate now. "We found the wall safe, Dad. Behind the painting in the study. We tried the birthdays. We tried the anniversary. Nothing worked." I stared at him. The disappointment hit me like a physical weight in my chest. He wasn't here to apologize. He was here to rob me again. "You want the combination," I stated. Marcus nodded eagerly. "Brittany says. Brittany thinks there is gold in there. She remembers you telling a story once about buying gold bars in the 90s. Dad, if there is gold in there, or cash, anything, we really need it. Just to get over this hump. Once the renovation is done, the house will be worth $4 million. We can pay you back. We can get you a nice apartment." I looked at my son. I saw the desperation. I saw the greed. but mostly I saw the weakness. He was willing to strip the flesh off my bones to feed the woman who held his leash. Gold, I repeated. Yes, Marcus said. Is there gold? I leaned back in the booth. I looked out the window at the rain. Do you remember when you were 10 years old, Marcus? I asked. He blinked, confused by the change of subject. What? You were 10. You wanted a bike, a red Schwinn. I told you that you had to earn half the money. You mowed lawns all summer. You washed cars. You worked hard. Dad. Please, Marcus interrupted. We don't have time for stories. I ignored him. And when you finally bought that bike, you were so proud. You polished it every day. You didn't let anyone touch it, because you earned it. You understood the value of it. I turned my gaze back to him. It was hard now, unforgiving. I failed you, Marcus. Somewhere along the way, I stopped making you earn things. I gave you the car. I gave you the tuition. I gave you the down payment on your first condo. And because you never built anything yourself, you don't know how to protect what you have. You only know how to take. Dad, the safe. Marcus pressed his voice, rising. Just give me the code. Brittany is going to leave me if I don't fix this. I looked at him. I saw the terrified child inside the man's suit. The combination is right, left, right, I said softly. 21, 4, 19. Marcus scrambled for his phone, typing it into his notes app. 21, 4, 19. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I knew you wouldn't let us drown. He stood up, ready to run, ready to rush back to the mansion and loot the last stronghold of my legacy. Sit down, Marcus, I commanded. My voice cracked like a whip. He froze. He sat back down, wary. You need to know what is in there, I said, before you open it. Is it gold? He asked, his eyes wide. I smiled, a sad, tired smile. No, Marcus, it is not gold, and it is not cash. Then what is it? It is an urn, I said. He frowned. An urn? A small brass urn, I continued. It contains the ashes of Buster, not the dog I have now. The first Buster, the one we had before you were born. Marcus stared at me, his mouth hung open. A dog. You kept a dog in the wall safe. He was the first living thing I was responsible for, I said. He was loyal. He never bit me. He never stole from me. He never forged my signature on a predatory loan document. Marcus went pale. The blood drained from his face. You know I reached into my pocket and pulled out a photocopy. It was the loan document from Omega Capital, the one he had signed yesterday, the one Vinny had faxed to Saul this morning as part of our arrangement. I slid it across the table. I know everything, Marcus. I know about the Porsche. I know about the forged power of attorney. And I know you signed my name to a federal lending document yesterday afternoon. Marcus looked at the paper. He couldn't breathe. Dad, I had to. Vinny said. I don't care what Vinny said, I interrupted. You committed a felony, Marcus. You crossed a line that you can never uncross. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I picked up my umbrella. There is no gold in the safe, son. There is only dust, just like there is no love in that house anymore. Only debt. I looked down at him one last time. He looked small. He looked broken. Go home to your wife, Marcus. Open the safe. Let her see that there is nothing left to take. Dad, wait. Marcus grabbed my sleeve. What are you going to do? Are you going to call the police? About the signature? I pulled my arm away, gently but firmly. I don't have a son named Marcus, I said. My son died the day he watched his wife bulldoze his mother's garden and did nothing. I walked toward the door. Dad, Marcus screamed. Dad, please help me. I didn't turn around. I didn't stop. I walked out into the rain. The cool water felt good on my face. It felt like it was washing away the last of the hesitation. I had given him a chance. I had sat at that table hoping he would confess. Hoping he would say, Dad, I messed up, take the house back. But he didn't. He asked for the gold. He chose the money over the father. I walked to my car and opened the door. Duke wagged his tail, happy to see me. Let's go, Duke, I said. I started the engine. I watched through the window of the diner. Marcus was still sitting in the booth, staring at the photocopy of the loan. He was alone. I pulled out of the parking lot. The tragedy wasn't that I had lost my son. The tragedy was that I finally realized I never really had him. He belonged to Brittany. He belonged to the greed. And now he belonged to the consequences. I drove into the night. The road ahead was dark, but my conscience was clear. The safe was empty, but my briefcase. My briefcase was full of evidence, and tomorrow I was going to use it to bury them. The most dangerous traps are the ones you don't see until the steel jaws clamp shut around your leg. Brittany and Marcus thought they had won the war because they held the deed to the house. They held a piece of paper that said they owned the structure at 10 Highland Avenue. They thought that piece of paper was the key to their kingdom, but in their arrogance they forgot a fundamental rule of property law. A rule that I, as a corporate attorney, had exploited a dozen times to kill hostile takeovers. There is a difference between the house and the land it sits on. I sat in my motel room, the hum of the mini fridge, the only sound in the darkness. On the table in front of me lay a copy of my wife's last will and testament. Rose wasn't a lawyer, she was a teacher, but she was sharper than anyone gave her credit for. 10 years ago, when Brittany first started dating Marcus, Rose had come to me in my study. She had a look in her eye that I knew well. It was the look of a mother bear sensing a predator near her cub. "Gus," she had said, "that girl is hungry. She looks at our house like it is a menu item." So we drafted a separation of assets, a ground lease. We transferred the title of the land, the 3 acres of prime real estate in the most expensive district of the city, into the Rose Freeman Irrevocable Trust. The house remained in my name, but the land belonged to the trust. And the terms of the lease were very specific. As long as Augustus Freeman resided in the home, the rent for the land was $1 per year, but there was a trigger clause, Clause 14B. If Augustus Freeman is removed, evicted, or coerced into leaving the property for any reason other than natural death, the ground lease terminates immediately. The tenancy becomes month to month, and the rent resets to the current market value plus a punitive premium for breach of contract. I picked up my phone. I sent a text to the courier service I had hired. Deliver the package. I switched tabs on my laptop to the camera feed. It was Wednesday morning. The atmosphere in the mansion was toxic. The red tag was still on the window. The hole in the wall was gaping like an open wound. Brittany was sitting at the kitchen island surrounded by receipts and calculator tape. She looked haggard. The stress of the last 3 days was eating away at her perfectly curated exterior. Marcus was pacing. "We have the cash from Vinny," Marcus said, wringing his hands. "We can pay the city fine today." "But Brittany, the interest on Vinny's loan starts ticking next week. We need to flip this house fast. We can't flip it with a hole in the wall," Brittany snapped. "Stop pacing, you are making me dizzy." The doorbell rang. They both froze. The last time the doorbell rang, the city shut them down. "I am not getting it," Marcus said, backing away. Brittany groaned. "You coward." She marched to the door and yanked it open. A young man in a bike messenger uniform stood there. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't a city inspector. He held a thick blue envelope. "Delivery for the occupants of 10 Highland Avenue," he said. Brittany snatched it. "From who?" The messenger shrugged. "The return address says the Rose Freeman Trust. Have a nice day." He walked away. Brittany stood in the doorway staring at the blue envelope. She walked back into the kitchen, a confused frown on her face. "The Rose Freeman Trust," she muttered. "Rose is dead. Why is she sending us mail?" She tore open the envelope. She pulled out a heavy document bound in legal backing. She started to read. I watched her face. It was a masterclass in slow-dawning horror. First confusion, then disbelief, then pure, unadulterated panic. "What is it?" Marcus asked, coming closer. "Is it Dad?" "No," Brittany whispered. She dropped the cover letter. Her hands were shaking. It is an invoice." "An invoice? For what?" "For rent," she said. Her voice was barely a squeak. "Rent." Marcus laughed nervously. "Brittany, we own the house. We have the deed. We don't pay rent. Read it," she screamed, shoving the document into his chest. "Read the first paragraph." Marcus read it out loud, his voice stumbling over the legal jargon. "Notice of lease termination and rent adjustment. Whereas the primary tenant, Augustus Freeman, has vacated the premises as of Sunday the 12th, the preferential lease agreement of $1 per annum is hereby null and void." Marcus stopped. He looked up. "What does that mean?" "Keep reading," Brittany yelled. "Pursuant to Clause 14B of the ground lease agreement established in 2010, the land located at 10 Highland Avenue, reverts to the control of the trust. The owner of the structure, currently listed as Marcus and Brittany Freeman, is hereby notified that the new monthly ground rent is set at $20,000. Marcus dropped the paper. $20,000, he whispered. A month. Due immediately. Brittany added, pointing at the bottom of the page, retroactive to the date of eviction. And she swallowed hard, looking like she was going to be sick. And if payment is not received within 5 days, the trust reserves the right to evict the structure from the land. Evict the structure, Marcus asked, his brain failing to process the absurdity. How do you evict a house? It means they can bulldoze it, Brittany shrieked. It means we own a pile of bricks sitting on dirt we don't own. She grabbed the deed they had forced me to sign. She scanned it frantically. She was looking for the legal description of the property. There, she cried, pointing a trembling finger. Look, Lot 4, a structure and improvements only. She looked at Marcus with wild eyes. We didn't read the legal description, Marcus. We just looked at the address. We bought the house, but we didn't buy the land. Marcus sank onto a bar stool. He looked like he had been shot. Mom, he whispered. Mom did this. No, Brittany spat. Your father did this. He is the trustee. Look at the signature at the bottom of the invoice. She held up the paper. There, in bold black ink, was my signature. Augustus Freeman, trustee. He knew, she whispered. He knew the whole time. When we kicked him out, when I told him he had 24 hours, he just smiled. She grabbed her hair, pulling at the roots. He let us kick him out because he knew it would trigger the clause he wanted us to evict him. The realization hit them like a freight train. Every move they had made, every cruelty they had inflicted had been a step into a bear trap I had set 10 years ago. Brittany grabbed her phone. She dialed my number. I watched it ring on my screen. Caller ID the witch. I didn't answer. I let it ring. Answer me, she screamed at her phone. Answer me, you old goat. She threw the phone across the room. It bounced off the sofa and landed on the rug. $20,000 a month, Marcus said softly. We can't afford that. We have the loan payment to Vinny. We have the city fine. We have the restoration costs. We are bankrupt, Brittany whispered. She slid down the cabinet until she was sitting on the floor surrounded by her expensive, useless renovation plans. We are completely, totally bankrupt. I sat in my motel room and took a deep breath. Rose was right. She was always right. She knew that someday someone would come for the house. She knew that Marcus was too weak to stop them, so she gave me the ultimate weapon. She gave me the earth itself. They could steal the walls, they could steal the roof, but they couldn't steal the ground beneath their feet. And now I was the landlord. And I was going to be the worst landlord in the history of the state. I picked up my burner phone and sent a text to Saul. Phase 2 is complete. The rats are trapped. Saul replied instantly. Vinny just called me. He saw the lien from the trust hit the public record. He is not happy, Gus. He thought he had first position on the collateral. Now he finds out he is second in line behind a trust. Good, I typed back. An angry shark is a hungry shark. I looked back at the screen. Brittany was crying. Real tears this time, not the fake ones for Instagram. These were tears of financial ruin. She looked at Marcus. Fix this, she sobbed. You are his son. Go talk to him. Beg him. Tell him we are sorry. Marcus looked at her. He won't listen, Brittany. He gave me a chance at the diner. He told me the safe was empty. He told me to walk away, and I asked him for gold. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the yard where the rose bushes used to be. He burned the bridge, Brittany, and we handed him the match. I closed the laptop. They were beginning to understand. This wasn't just a legal battle. This was a lesson. A house without a foundation cannot stand, and a family without loyalty is just a group of strangers fighting over an inheritance. I patted Duke on the head. You are a good boy, Duke. You never asked for the deed. You just wanted to be with me. I stood up and walked to the mirror. I adjusted my collar. I looked tired, yes, but I looked strong. The land belongs to the trust. The trust belongs to me. And the rent is due. I walked out of the motel room into the sunlight. It was a beautiful day, the kind of day where the air is crisp and the sky is blue. I decided to go for a drive. Maybe I would drive past 10 Highland Avenue. Maybe I would slow down just enough to see the look on Brittany's face when she realized that the ground she was standing on was about to swallow her whole. They wanted to be owner's fine. Now they owned a monthly bill that would bleed them dry until they begged for mercy. And mercy was a commodity I was currently out of stock on. The summons arrived on a Friday afternoon. It was taped to the door of my motel room by a process server who looked like he would rather be fishing. I pulled the tape off the peeling paint and unfolded the document. It was a lawsuit, Brittany Freeman versus the Rose Freeman Trust and Augustus Freeman. The charge was undue influence and lack of testamentary capacity. In plain English, she was suing me for being too old and crazy to manage my own money. She was claiming that the ground lease, the document that was currently charging her $20,000 a month, was invalid because I was mentally incompetent when I enforced it. I looked at the name of the attorney representing her, Barry Slattery. I actually laughed out loud. Duke looked up from his nap, confused by the sound. Barry Slattery. I knew him. He was a bottom feeder. He was the kind of lawyer who put his face on bus benches with the slogan, "Injured Call Barry." He handled slip and falls and minor traffic disputes. He was cheap, he was loud, and he had never won a case against a corporate firm in his life. Brittany must have been desperate. She must have scraped the bottom of the barrel to find someone willing to take a case against a trust that was ironclad. I put on my best suit. It was a charcoal gray three-piece suit tailored in Italy 20 years ago. It still fit. I polished my shoes until they looked like black glass. I tied my tie with a perfect Windsor knot. I looked in the mirror. The gardener was gone. The sad old man in the cardigan was gone. Staring back at me was Augustus Freeman, the man who used to make CEOs sweat through their silk shirts. Monday morning, courtroom 4B. The air smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. I walked in alone. I didn't bring a lawyer. I carried only my old leather briefcase. Brittany was already there. She was sitting at the plaintiff's table next to Barry Slattery. She was wearing a modest dress, trying to look like a victim. She had even worn her glasses a prop she used to look intelligent. Marcus sat behind her in the gallery, his head down, picking at his fingernails. He wouldn't look at me. Slattery stood up as the judge entered. Judge Eleanor Mathers. I knew her. We had clerked together 40 years ago. She was tough fare and had zero patience for fools. She looked at me, and I saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes, but she kept her face impassive. All rise. The bailiff called the case. Slattery launched into his opening statement. He paced back and forth, waving his arms, his cheap suit bunching at the shoulders. "Your Honor!" he boomed, his voice echoing in the half-empty room. "My client, Mrs. Brittany Freeman, is a victim of a cruel and manipulative scheme. The defendant, Augustus Freeman, is a man in the twilight of his life. He is 72 years old. He has shown signs of dementia. He forgets names. He wanders." Brittany sniffled loudly for effect. Slattery pointed a finger at me. This man, in a fit of confusion and paranoia, triggered a dormant clause in a trust to bankrupt his own son. We argue that Augustus Freeman lacked the mental capacity to enforce such a complex legal document. We argue that the ground lease is unconscionable. We ask the court to dissolve the trust's claim on the land and grant full title to the plaintiffs, who have been caring for this elderly man out of the kindness of their hearts. He sat down looking smug. He thought he had done a great job. Judge Mathers turned to me. "Mr. Freeman, do you have counsel?" I stood up. I didn't lean on the table. I didn't hunch. I stood at my full height of 6 feet 2 inches. I buttoned my jacket. "I represent myself." "Your Honor," Slattery snorted. "A man who represents himself has a fool for a client." "Your Honor." This just proves his lack of judgment. I ignored him. I walked to the center of the room. I didn't pace. I stood still. I commanded the space. "Your Honor." I began, my voice low and resonant, projecting to the back of the room without shouting. "Mr. Slattery claims I am senile. He claims I am confused. He claims I am a burden that his client has graciously carried." I turned to look at Brittany. She held my gaze for a second, then looked away, unnerved by the clarity in my eyes. The Rose Freeman Trust was established in 2010. I continued. At that time, I was the senior partner at Freeman Davis & Lee. I was 57 years old. I was legally sound, mentally sharp, and fully aware that I was protecting my assets from exactly the kind of predatory greed sitting at the plaintiff's table today. "Objection," Slattery yelled, jumping up. badgering the client. Overruled, Judge Mathers said, leaning forward. Continue, Mr. Freeman. Thank you, Your Honor. The plaintiff argues that my enforcement of the lease is a sign of dementia. I argue it is a sign of contract law. Clause 14b is specific. It triggers upon eviction, and I was evicted. I walked back to my table and opened my briefcase. Mr. Slattery paints a picture of a loving daughter-in-law caring for a senile old man. He claims I left the house due to confusion. I pulled out a flash drive. It was small, silver, and cold. I would like to submit Defense Exhibit A, Your Honor. Slattery frowned. What is that? We haven't seen this in discovery. It is rebuttal evidence, I said calmly, impeaching the witness's credibility regarding her relationship with the defendant. Judge Mathers nodded. Bailiff, please play the exhibit. The bailiff took the drive and plugged it into the court's AV system. A large screen dropped down from the ceiling. Brittany shifted in her seat. She looked nervous. She whispered something to Slattery, but he waved her off, confident that nothing on that drive could hurt them. The video began to play. It wasn't a shaky cell phone video. It was high-definition footage from the security cameras I had installed in the kitchen and the backyard. The first clip was from that Sunday morning. The audio was crystal clear. You have 1 day to get out of here, old man, Brittany's voice rang out in the quiet courtroom. This mansion belongs to us now. The courtroom gasped. It wasn't the voice of a caring caretaker. It was the voice of a tyrant. The video cut to the next scene. Me standing in the kitchen looking confused. Brittany shoving the papers at me. If you are still here tomorrow, I will call the police, the video, Brittany sneered. I will tell them you are an intruder. Slattery's jaw dropped. He looked at his client. Brittany was pale. She was gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. But I wasn't done. The video cut to the backyard, the bulldozer scene. The massive machine roared on the screen. The jurors, if there had been a jury, would have felt the vibration. We saw me running out. We saw me pleading. These are Rose's roses. Her ashes are in there, my voice on the screen screamed. And then Brittany's response. Cold, heartless. It is just dirt and thorny sticks. Dig it up. If there are bones, dump them in the landfill. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. Judge Mathers looked horrified. She looked at Brittany with an expression of pure disgust. Then came the final clip, the one that sealed her fate. Brittany holding up her phone, faking the live stream. Oh my God, he is attacking me. Help, he is dangerous. On the security footage, the truth was obvious. I was standing 10 feet away crying while she performed a lie for her audience. The screen went black. I turned to the judge. Your Honor, I said softly, does that look like a woman who is caring for a senile father? Or does that look like elder abuse? Does that look like a woman concerned for my mental health, or a woman concerned with stealing my property? I walked over to Slattery. Your client committed fraud. Mr. Slattery. She filed a false police report on a live stream. She destroyed human remains. And she evicted a 72-year-old man with 24 hours notice. I turned to Brittany. She was trembling. She was crying, but this time nobody believed her. You wanted to prove I was incompetent, Brittany, I said. But the only thing you proved is that you are cruel, and cruelty is not a legal defense for breaching a contract. I turned back to the judge. I move for a dismissal of this lawsuit, Your Honor, and I ask the court to uphold the validity of the Rose Freeman Trust and the debt currently owed by the plaintiffs. Judge Mathers didn't need time to deliberate. She slammed her gavel down. It sounded like a gunshot. Mr. Slattery, she said, her voice dripping with ice. You should be ashamed to bring this case into my courtroom. She looked at Brittany. Mrs. Freeman, your conduct is reprehensible. Not only is this case dismissed with prejudice, meaning you can never file it again, but I am forwarding this footage to the district attorney's office. There are laws against elder abuse in this state, and you have just provided the evidence against yourself, Brittany wailed. No, you can't. The judge ignored her. The trust stands. The debt stands. And if you waste my time again, I will hold you in contempt. Get out of my courtroom. Bang. The sound of the gavel ended the session. I slowly packed my briefcase. I put the flash drive back in its pocket. Slattery was packing his things furiously, refusing to look at me. He whispered something angry to Brittany and stormed out. Brittany sat there frozen. Marcus finally stood up from the gallery. He walked over to the railing. He looked at me. Dad, he whispered. I didn't answer him. I snapped the latches of my briefcase shut. Click, click. I walked past the plaintiff's table. I stopped right next to Brittany's ear. She didn't look up. She was staring at her hands, which were shaking uncontrollably. I leaned in. "You called me old Brittany," I whispered. "You called me weak. But you forgot one thing." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with terror. "I was winning cases before you were born. You brought a knife to a nuclear war." I straightened my tie. I nodded to the bailiff. "Have a good day, officer." I walked down the center aisle of the courtroom. My footsteps were steady. My back was straight. I pushed open the double doors and stepped out into the hallway. The air in the hallway was cooler, fresher. I took a deep breath. I had won the battle. But the war wasn't over. They still had the house. They still had the debt. And now they had the district attorney looking at them. I checked my phone. A text from Saul. "Vinny is getting impatient. He wants to know why the renovation hasn't started." I smiled. I typed back, "Tell Vinny to visit them on Friday. I think they will be home." I walked toward the elevator. The shark had tasted blood, and he wasn't full yet. Not by a long shot. The silence in the mansion on Highland Avenue was not the peaceful silence of a library. It was the suffocating, heavy silence of a bomb disposal unit watching a timer count down to 0. It was Friday night. The deadline for the city fine was tomorrow. The first installment of the $20,000 ground rent to the trust was due on Monday. And Vinny the loan shark with the sharkskin suit had just sent a text message to Marcus. It was a simple message. Just a picture of a calendar with the date circled in red, followed by a knife emoji. I sat in my motel room, my dinner of cold pizza untouched on the table. I adjusted the volume on my laptop. The camera feed from the living room was grainier now as the sun went down, casting long, distorted shadows across the debris of the demolished wall. Brittany was sitting on the floor in the middle of the room. She was surrounded by papers, bank statements, notices from the city, the invoice from the trust. She looked like a general in a bunker who realizes the enemy has already breached the perimeter. Her hair was matted. She hadn't showered in 2 days. The influencer who lived for the camera was now hiding from the world. Marcus walked in from the kitchen. He was holding a glass of water. He moved slowly, cautiously, like he was walking into a cage with a wounded tiger. "Did you call the realtor?" Brittany asked. Her voice was low, a dangerous growl. "I did," Marcus whispered. "She said she can't list the house until the red tag is removed. She said no one will buy a property with an active federal violation and a stop work order." Brittany didn't look up. She just stared at the papers. "So we are trapped," she said. Marcus didn't answer. He took a sip of water. The ice cubes clinked against the glass. That sound seemed to snap something inside her brain. "Trapped," she screamed. She grabbed a heavy crystal vase from the coffee table, a wedding gift from my late wife's sister, and hurled it across the room. It smashed into the fireplace, shattering into 1,000 glittering shards. Marcus jumped back, dropping his water glass. It spilled across the expensive hardwood floor, mixing with the dust of the broken wall. Brittany Marcus yelled, "Stop it! You are crazy! I am crazy!" she shrieked, scrambling to her feet. She looked wild. Her eyes were wide and bloodshot. "I am crazy because I tried to secure our future. I am crazy because I wanted us to have something better than your mediocrity." She marched toward him, kicking through the piles of paper. "This is your fault, Marcus. This is all your fault. You told me he was just a gardener. You told me he was soft. You said, 'Oh, Dad is just an old man who talks to his dog. Dad won't fight back. Dad is senile.'" She shoved Marcus hard in the chest. He stumbled back against the wall. "Look at this," she screamed, waving the lawsuit dismissal in his face. "Look at the trust document. Look at the historical preservation trap. Does this look like the work of a senile old man?" She grabbed a decorative pillow and threw it at his face. Then she grabbed a heavy art book and threw that too. It hit Marcus in the shoulder. He grunted in pain but didn't fight back. He played us. Marcus, Brittany yelled, her voice cracking with hysteria. He played us like a fiddle. He knew every single move we were going to make before we made it. He let us kick him out. He let us sign the deed. He let us demolish the wall. He waited until we were neck deep in debt, and then he pulled the ladder up. She stopped breathing heavily, her chest heaving. She looked at Marcus with a mixture of hatred and genuine confusion. How she whispered, "How is he so smart? He spends his days pruning roses and watching the History Channel. How does he know about federal zoning laws? How does he have a trust set up that is bulletproof? Why does he have lawyers terrified of him?" She grabbed Marcus by the lapels of his jacket and shook him. "Who is he? Marcus, who is your father really? Because the man who destroyed me in court yesterday wasn't a gardener." Marcus looked at her. For the first time in his life, he didn't look afraid of her. He looked tired. He looked resigned. He looked like a man who had finally woken up from a long, expensive dream to find his reality was a nightmare. He gently peeled her hands off his jacket. He pushed her away. He sat down on the arm of the sofa, ignoring the dust. "You never asked." "Brittany," Marcus said softly. "What?" Brittany spat. "You never asked who he was," Marcus repeated. "In the 5 years we have been married, you never once asked him about his life before retirement. You only asked how much the house was worth. You only asked when he was going to die." "He is a nobody," Brittany screamed. Marcus laughed. It was a dry, bitter sound. "A nobody, Brittany. My father was the senior managing partner at Freeman Davis & Lee for 30 years. Brittany froze. The name of the firm hung in the air. Even she, with her superficial knowledge of the world, knew that name. It was the biggest corporate law firm in Chicago. He wasn't just a lawyer. Marcus continued staring at the floor. He was a shark. He specialized in hostile takeovers and corporate mergers. His nickname on Wall Street was the Grim Reaper. When companies wanted to destroy a competitor, they called my dad. He looked up at Brittany. He didn't just plant roses, Brittany. He buried giants. He dismantled billion-dollar corporations for breakfast. He wrote the book on contract loopholes. That trust. The one destroying us right now. He probably wrote it on a napkin during a lunch break 20 years ago, just for fun. Brittany stared at him, her mouth slightly open. The color drained from her face. "You told me he was a gardener," she whispered. "I told you he liked gardening," Marcus corrected. "That was his therapy. That was how he tried to forget the ruthless things he did for 30 years. He retired because Mom got sick, and he promised her he would stop fighting wars. He promised her he would be gentle." Marcus stood up and walked over to the hole in the wall. He ran his hand along the jagged edge of the limestone. "But you," he said, looking back at her, "you pushed him. You didn't just take his house. You disrespected Mom's memory. You bulldozed her garden. You woke him up, Brittany. You made him break his promise to Mom." He turned to face her. "You are fighting a man who used to make CEOs cry in depositions. And you thought you could beat him with an Instagram post." Brittany sank to the floor. She wrapped her arms around herself. The realization was crashing down on her. She hadn't just kicked an old man out. She had declared war on a general. "Why didn't you tell me?" she wailed. "Why didn't you warn me I tried?" Marcus said quietly. "I told you not to rush. I told you to be careful. But you called me a coward. You told me to man up." He kicked a piece of broken glass across the floor. "Well, I manned up. I forged his signature for you. I stole his money for you. And now, thanks to your greed and my stupidity, we are going to prison. Because when Vinny finds out we don't own the land, he isn't going to sue us. He is going to kill us." Brittany looked up. The mention of Vinny snapped her back to reality. The fear of the loan shark was more immediate than the fear of the father. "We have to sell," she whispered. "We can't sell," Marcus said. "The red tag. We have to find a buyer who doesn't care." Brittany screamed, scrambling to her feet. "There has to be someone. A cash buyer. Someone who wants the land. We just need enough to pay Vinny and the fines." She started pacing again, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. "We sell it cheap. We sell it for half price. I don't care. We just need out." Marcus looked at her. "You are willing to sell a $3 million house for half price, just to run away?" "Yes," Brittany yelled. "I want to leave. I hate this house. It is cursed. Your father cursed it." I watched from my motel room. I took a sip of my water. They were ready. They were broken. They were terrified. And they were desperate enough to sell a diamond for the price of coal just to escape the pressure. It was the perfect moment. I picked up my burner phone. I sent a text to Saul. "Activate the buyer." Saul replied instantly. "The investor is ready. He will call them in 10 minutes. I leaned back in my chair. Marcus was right about one thing. I used to be the Grim Reaper, but he was wrong about the other thing. I didn't break my promise to Rose. Rose hated bullies, and she would have been the first one to hand me the sledgehammer to take down this particular bully. I watched Brittany on the screen. She was frantically typing on her phone, probably searching for how to sell a house with liens fast. "Good luck, Brittany," I whispered. You are going to need it, because the buyer who is about to call you isn't a savior. He is the final nail in the coffin I built for you. 10 minutes. I watched the clock on my laptop screen. 9 minutes. 8 minutes. The phone in the mansion rang. Brittany jumped. She stared at it. "Answer it," Marcus said. Brittany picked it up. "Hello?" she said, her voice trembling. I couldn't hear the other side of the call, but I knew exactly what was being said. I had written the script myself. Brittany's eyes widened. She covered the mouthpiece. "Marcus," she whispered loudly. "It is a cash buyer. He says he represents an investment group. He says they specialize in distressed properties with legal issues." Marcus looked skeptical. "How did they get our number?" "Who cares?" Brittany hissed. She went back to the phone. Yes, we are the owners. Yes, we are looking to sell immediately." "Cash? Today?" She listened, her face lit up with desperate hope. 1.5 million. That is low. The house is appraised at 3. She listened again. Her face fell. "Oh, the liens." "Yes, I understand." She looked at Marcus. She nodded. "Okay. Yes. We accept. When can you come tomorrow noon?" "Perfect. We will be here." She hung up the phone. She let out a scream of relief. "We are saved," she yelled, hugging Marcus. "Someone wants to buy it. 1.5 million cash. It covers Vinny, it covers the fines, and it leaves us with a little bit to start over." Marcus didn't hug her back. "Who is the buyer?" he asked. She shrugged. "Some LLC. Phoenix Investments. It doesn't matter. They are bringing a notary tomorrow. We just sign, and we are out." I smiled in my motel room. Phoenix Investments, my shell company. They were going to sell my house back to me for half of what it was worth. And they were going to use the money to pay off the debts they incurred destroying it. It was a perfect circle of justice. But there was one more twist coming, one more clause in the purchase agreement that they wouldn't read until it was too late. I patted Duke on the head. "Pack your bags, boy, we are going home soon, but first we have a closing to attend, and I wouldn't miss this signature for the world." The sun rose on Saturday morning over the wreckage of my life, casting long shadows across the floor of the mansion I no longer legally owned. From my vantage point in the motel room, staring at the grainy laptop screen, I could see the exhaustion etched into every line of Brittany's face. She hadn't slept. She was wearing the same designer tracksuit she had worn yesterday, but now it was stained with coffee and drywall dust. She was pacing the foyer, clutching her phone like a lifeline, waiting for the call that she believed would save her. I took a bite of my stale bagel. I knew exactly who was going to call. I had arranged it. You see, when you corner a rat, it doesn't fight. It looks for a hole. Brittany and Marcus were cornered. They had the city inspectors breathing down their necks with a $50,000 fine. They had the Rose Freeman Trust demanding $20,000 a month for the land beneath their feet. And most terrifying of all, they had Vinny the loan shark, who would be expecting his first interest payment on a loan that Marcus had forged my signature to get. They needed cash. They needed an exit. They needed to sell the house, take whatever money was left, and run before the law caught up with them. Brittany stopped pacing. A black SUV with tinted windows pulled into the driveway. It was sleek, ominous, and expensive. It looked like the kind of car that carried people who made problems disappear. "They are here," Brittany hissed at Marcus. "Stand up straight, put your jacket on, don't look desperate." Marcus was sitting on the bottom step of the grand staircase, his head in his hands. He looked up, his eyes hollow. "We are desperate, Brittany," he whispered. "We are drowning." "Shut up," she snapped. "Just sign whatever they put in front of you. We need that deposit check." The doorbell rang. Brittany smoothed her hair, plastered on a fake bright smile, and opened the door. Standing there was a man named Silas. To Brittany, he was Mr. Blackwood, a representative from a private equity firm called Phoenix Holdings. To me, he was Silas, an old associate from my days in corporate law. Silas was a closer. He was the man you sent in when you wanted to buy a company, strip it for parts, and leave the CEO crying in the parking lot. He was wearing a $3,000 suit and carrying a briefcase that looked like it contained nuclear launch codes. Mrs. Freeman Silas asked, his voice smooth as silk. "Yes, please come in," Brittany said, stepping aside. Silas walked into the foyer. He didn't smile. He looked around the room, taking in the destruction. He looked at the plastic tarps covering the furniture. He looked at the dust coating the chandelier. And then he looked at the massive jagged hole in the limestone wall. He stopped. He took off his sunglasses slowly. The listing said the property was undergoing renovations. Silas said, his tone neutral. It didn't mention a demolition zone. Brittany laughed nervously. Oh, that. Yes, we were opening up the concept. It is a minor project, just needs a little drywall and paint. Silas walked over to the wall. He ran a gloved hand over the rough stone. He saw the red tag taped to the window. He didn't say anything. He just tapped the neon orange sticker with his finger. A stop work order from the city, Silas noted. That complicates things. It is just a paperwork error, Brittany lied quickly. A misunderstanding with the permits. We are clearing it up on Monday. It is nothing. Silas turned to face them. He looked at Marcus, who was trembling by the stairs. He looked at Brittany, whose smile was twitching. Phoenix Holdings is interested in the property, Silas said. We specialize in distressed assets. We can move fast. Cash, no banks, no inspections. Brittany let out a breath she had been holding for days. Thank God, she whispered. What is the offer? 1.5 million, Silas said. Brittany flinched. 1.5. The appraisal is 3 million. The appraisal was for a pristine house, Mrs. Freeman, Silas said coldly. This is a house with a federal lien, a city violation, and significant structural damage. 1.5 is generous, and we can close in 48 hours. Monday morning, Brittany looked at Marcus. 1.5 million. It would pay off Vinny. It would pay the fines. It would pay the trust. And it would leave them with maybe $200,000. It wasn't the fortune she wanted, but it was freedom. It was a getaway car. We take it, Brittany said. Good, Silas said. He walked to the dining room table, pushed aside a pile of unpaid bills, and opened his briefcase. He pulled out a sleek laptop and a portable printer. I have the purchase agreement ready. Standard terms. Cash on closing. He paused. He looked at them with eyes that were hard and unyielding. However, because of the red tag and the structural damage, my partners require a security clause. What kind of clause? Brittany asked, her eyes glued to the checkbook Silas had just pulled out. We are putting down a significant deposit today, Silas explained. $100,000. Non-refundable to us, instantly available to you. Brittany gasped. $100,000. Today. That was exactly what they needed. That would get Vinny off their back immediately. But Silas continued, raising a finger. To protect our investment, the contract states that the seller, that is you, must resolve all outstanding city violations before the closing on Monday. The title must be clear of the red tag. Brittany nodded furiously. Yes, we can do that. We will pay the fine today. If the violations are not cleared by Monday at 9 a.m., Silas said, his voice dropping lower, then you are in breach of contract. And the penalty for breach is triple the deposit. Marcus looked up. Triple. That means if you don't fix this by Monday, you owe us $300,000, Silas said. It is standard for high-risk acquisitions. It ensures you are motivated to close. Brittany didn't hear the warning. She didn't do the math. She didn't realize that clearing the violation didn't just mean paying the fine. It meant restoring the wall. It meant hiring an architect. It meant a process that took weeks, not 48 hours. She only saw the check in Silas's hand. $100,000. We can do it, Brittany said. We just pay the $50,000 fine and the city lifts the tag. Easy. She grabbed the pen. Marcus, she snapped. Come sign. Marcus hesitated. He looked at Silas. He looked at the contract. Triple damages, Marcus whispered. Brittany, if we can't fix it, we will fix it, Brittany hissed. Stop being a coward. Do you want Vinny to come back here with a baseball bat? We need this money now. She shoved the pen into his hand. Sign it. Marcus. I watched from my motel room. My heart was pounding. This was the moment. This was the final turn of the screw. Don't do it, son, I whispered to the screen. Read the fine print. Read the definition of clearing a violation. But Marcus didn't read. He was terrified. He was exhausted. He just wanted the nightmare to end. He pressed the pen to the paper. He signed his name. Then Brittany signed hers. The sound of the pen scratching against the paper was loud in the quiet room. It sounded like a lock clicking shut. Silas took the contract. He checked the signatures. He nodded. Then he tore a check from his book. $100,000. Certified funds. He handed it to Brittany. She snatched it like a starving dog grabbing a bone. She held it up to the light. She kissed it. "We are rich," she squealed. "We are out." Silas packed up his briefcase. He stood up. "I will see you on Monday morning at 9 a.m. for the final walkthrough and closing," he said. "Have the red tag removed, or have my $300,000 ready." He walked out the door. Brittany didn't even watch him leave. She was dancing around the kitchen waving the check. "We did it, Marcus. We sold the dump. We are going to pay the city pay, Vinny, and move to a condo in the city." Marcus was looking at the contract on the table. He was reading the clause Silas had mentioned. "Brittany," he said slowly. "It says here, violation cleared pursuant to City Code 402. Who cares?" Brittany laughed. "We have cash. Let's go to the bank." I sat back in my chair at the motel. I closed my eyes. They had the money. They felt safe. They felt victorious. But they didn't understand what they had just signed. Paying the fine was easy. They could do that today. But City Code 402, that was the code for historical preservation. The red tag from Ted Henderson wasn't just a parking ticket. It was a stop work order that could only be lifted after a certified restoration was inspected and approved. That took a minimum of 30 days. They had agreed to do a 30-day job in 48 hours. And come Monday morning, when Silas, my representative, walked back through that door and saw the red tag still hanging there, he wasn't going to give them the rest of the money. He was going to demand $300,000. They had just taken $100,000 from me, and in 2 days they were going to owe me $300,000. I picked up my phone and called Saul. "Did they sign?" Saul asked. "They signed," I said. "And the check, Brittany is holding it like it is the Holy Grail." Saul chuckled. "It is a poisoned chalice, Gus." "I know," I said. I looked at the screen one last time. Brittany was hugging Marcus. She was crying tears of relief. She thought the war was over. She thought she had outsmarted the system. She had no idea that she had just walked into the kill box. Monday morning was going to be a bloodbath. And I intended to have a front row seat. I stood up and poured fresh water for Duke. "Drink up, boy," I said. "We are going to need our strength. We are closing the deal on Monday." And this time the gavel wasn't going to be a hammer. It was going to be a contract. Monday morning arrived with the sterile fluorescent hum of the title company's conference room. It was a room designed for handshakes and congratulations, filled with the scent of stale coffee and fresh ink. But today, it was going to be an execution chamber. I was sitting in my car in the parking lot watching the live feed from the conference room on my tablet. Silas, my associate posing as the investor from Phoenix Holdings, had placed his phone face up on the table, broadcasting the audio and video directly to me. Brittany was vibrating with energy. She was wearing a white pantsuit, trying to project the image of a successful real estate mogul closing a deal. She drummed her manicured fingernails on the mahogany table, checking her watch every 30 seconds. Next to her sat Marcus. He looked less like a mogul and more like a man waiting for a biopsy result. He was pale, sweating, and kept loosening his tie as if it were a noose. On the other side of the table sat Silas. He was calm, unmoving, a statue carved from ice. His briefcase was closed. His hands were folded. "Where is the check?" Brittany asked, flashing a tight, impatient smile. "It is 9:15. We agreed to close at 9. We have the keys right here." She slid a set of keys across the table. They clicked loudly against the wood. Silas didn't touch them. He looked at the keys, then he looked at Brittany. "We agreed to close upon the satisfaction of all contract contingencies," Mrs. Freeman, Silas said. His voice was smooth, professional, and completely devoid of warmth. "Specifically, Clause 4, Section B, the removal of all municipal violations and the clearing of the red tag stop work order." Brittany waved her hand dismissively. "Done and done," she chirped. "We wired the $50,000 to the city on Saturday. The fine is paid. The receipt is right here in my bag. So the violation is cleared. Now about the remaining $1.4 million. Silas raised a hand to stop her. "Payment of a fine is an admission of guilt, Mrs. Freeman. It is not a remediation of the issue." Brittany froze. Her smile faltered. "What does that mean?" "It means," Silas continued, "that Phoenix Holdings requires verification that the property is legally habitable and that the structural integrity has been restored as per the city's demands. We cannot take title to a building that is still under a federal preservation hold." Brittany laughed a nervous, high-pitched sound. You are being ridiculous. We paid the money. The city just needs to update their computer system. It takes time. But the house is yours. You can fix the wall however you want. Silas shook his head. I am afraid that is not how it works. But to be fair, I invited a third party to verify the status of the property. The door to the conference room opened. Brittany spun around in her chair. Marcus looked up, terror flooding his eyes. Walking into the room was Ted Henderson, the director of city planning, the man who had slapped the red tag on the window just days ago. He was wearing his official city jacket and holding a thick file. He didn't look happy. Brittany stammered. What are you doing here? We paid you. We sent the wire transfer. Ted walked to the head of the table. He placed the file down with a heavy thud. Mrs. Freeman, he said, his voice echoing in the small room. I received your payment of $50,000. Thank you. That covers the initial penalty for unauthorized demolition. See, Brittany shouted, pointing at Silas. See? He said it is covered. Now write the check. However, Ted continued, raising his voice to cut her off, paying a speeding ticket doesn't fix the car you crashed. The red tag violation is based on the condition of the limestone wall. He opened the file and pulled out a photo taken that very morning. It showed the hole in my living room wall. It showed the debris still on the floor. It showed the orange sticker still on the window. As of 8 a.m. this morning, the structural damage remains. No certified architect has been hired. No restoration plan has been submitted. And most importantly, the wall is still destroyed. Therefore, the stop work order remains in full effect. The property is not clear. In fact, due to the delay, the daily fines have now begun to accrue. Brittany stared at the photo. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. But we can't fix it in 2 days, she sputtered. That takes weeks. Exactly, Ted said. And until it is fixed, the title is clouded. You cannot sell this property. It is frozen by the state. Ted looked at Silas and nodded. The city's position is clear. This property is non-compliant. Good day. Ted turned and walked out of the room. He didn't look back. He had done his job. He had delivered the truth. The silence that followed was suffocating. I watched Brittany on my screen. She looked like she had been slapped. She turned slowly to Silas. Okay, she said, her voice trembling. So we have a delay. Fine. We will extend the closing. Give us a month. We will hire the architect. We will fix the wall. Just give us another deposit to cover the costs. Silas didn't blink. He reached into his briefcase. He didn't pull out a checkbook. He pulled out the contract they had signed on Saturday, the one with the wet ink. I am afraid that is not an option, Silas said. He flipped to the back page. He pointed to a paragraph highlighted in yellow. Clause 9. Time is of the essence. If the seller fails to deliver a clear and marketable title by Monday at 9 a.m., the seller is in material breach of contract. He looked up at Brittany. His eyes were hard. You are in breach, Mrs. Freeman. Brittany scoffed. So what? We cancel the deal. We find another buyer. Keep your stupid $100,000. We will find someone else. She stood up, grabbing her purse. Come on, Marcus. Let's go. Sit down, Silas commanded. His voice cracked like a whip. Brittany froze. She looked at him. You didn't read the rest of the clause, Silas said. He began to read aloud. In the event of a seller breach due to misrepresentation of property status, the seller agrees to pay liquidated damages to the buyer in the amount of 3 times the initial earnest money deposit payable immediately upon demand. Silas closed the folder. You misrepresented the status of the red tag. You told me it was a paperwork error. It was a structural felony. You took my $100,000 on Saturday in bad faith. He leaned forward. I am demanding the penalty, Mrs. Freeman. You owe Phoenix Holdings $300,000, and I want it right now. The color drained from Brittany's face so fast she looked like a corpse. She grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. 300,000, she whispered, plus the return of my original 100,000, Silas added calmly. So 400,000 total. No, Brittany moaned. No. We spent it. We spent the deposit. We paid the city fine. We paid the loan shark. It is gone. That is not my problem, Silas said. You signed a contract. You personally guaranteed the performance of this agreement. He pulled out his phone. I have my legal team on standby. If the funds are not wired by noon, we will file a lien against every asset you own. Your car, your jewelry, your personal bank accounts, and we will file a fraud complaint with the district attorney. Taking a deposit when you know you can't close is wire fraud, Mrs. Freeman. That is prison time. Brittany collapsed into her chair. She put her head on the table and let out a sound that was half scream, half sob. It was the sound of a woman watching her entire world disintegrate. Marcus stared at the contract. He was shaking. We don't have $400,000, Marcus whispered. We have nothing. We are negative. Silas stood up. He buttoned his jacket. You have 3 hours, he said. I suggest you start selling things. He walked to the door. He stopped and looked back at them. You know, he said, adding a personal touch I hadn't scripted but which fit perfectly. My boss told me you were arrogant. He said you would sign anything if you saw a dollar sign. I didn't believe people could be that greedy. He shook his head. I guess he was right. Silas walked out. I watched the screen. Brittany was sobbing, pounding her fists on the table. What do we do? She screamed at Marcus. What do we do? Vinny is going to kill us. The investors are going to sue us. We are going to jail. Marcus sat there paralyzed. He looked at the keys to the house sitting in the middle of the table. The house I built. The house they stole. It is over, Brittany, Marcus said softly. It is all over. I turned off the tablet in my car. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. $300,000. They were trapped in a box of their own making. They had paid the city fine with my money only to find out it didn't solve the problem. They had paid the loan shark interest with my money only to find out they couldn't pay the principal. And now they owed me triple what they had taken. It was brutal. It was efficient. It was the kind of legal maneuvering that used to make me a legend in the boardroom. But sitting there in the parking lot hearing my daughter-in-law sob, I didn't feel like a legend. I felt like a father who had just been forced to discipline a child who refused to listen to reason. I started the engine of my car. I had one more stop to make. The final player in this tragedy was waiting. Vinny. Because when you burn a house down, you have to make sure the fire doesn't spread to the neighbors, and I had a feeling Vinny was about to pay a visit to Highland Avenue. I pulled out of the parking lot. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day for justice. The sun had gone down hours ago, leaving the mansion on Highland Avenue shrouded in a darkness that felt heavy and suffocating. Inside, the air was cold. The heating had been turned off because Marcus was afraid to run up the utility bill they couldn't pay. The house, once a symbol of warmth and success, now felt like a mausoleum. I wasn't in the motel room anymore. I was sitting in the passenger seat of an unmarked police cruiser parked 3 houses down, the engine idling silently. Next to me sat Jim Miller, the chief of police. Jim and I have played chess every Thursday night for 15 years. He knows how I think. He knows I don't call in favors unless lives are at stake. We waited. We watched. A black SUV with tinted windows rolled down the street. It didn't have headlights on. It moved like a shark in deep water. It pulled into my driveway, blocking Marcus's Porsche. Here we go, Jim whispered, his hand resting on the radio. Give it a minute, I said. I need them to feel the fear. I need them to understand that money borrowed from the devil always comes with a price tag attached to your soul. Inside the house, the scene was playing out exactly as I had predicted. I could see it through the living room window where the curtains had been torn down during Brittany's renovation madness. Marcus and Brittany were sitting on the floor amidst the debris of the broken wall. When the front door burst open, they didn't even scream. They just froze. They knew who it was. They knew why he was there. Vinny walked in. He wasn't wearing his shiny suit tonight. He was wearing a leather jacket and heavy boots. Behind him walked a man the size of a vending machine, a man whose only job was to hurt people. Vinny didn't say hello. He walked straight up to the coffee table and kicked it over. Glass shattered across the floor. "You think I am stupid?" Vinny roared. His voice carried all the way to the street. "You think you can play games with my money?" Marcus scrambled backward, crab walking across the floor until his back hit the fireplace. "Vinny, please," Marcus stammered. "We are good for it. We just had a delay with the sale." "The buyer—" "There is no buyer," Vinny screamed. "I ran the title again this morning. I saw the lien from the Rose Freeman Trust. You don't own the land. Marcus, you own a pile of bricks on rented dirt. I can't foreclose on a house if I don't control the ground underneath it. Vinny grabbed Marcus by the collar of his shirt and hauled him up. You committed fraud, kid. You gave me collateral that was worthless. You forged a signature on a loan application for a property you don't fully control. And now I don't want the house. I want my 150 grand, cash, tonight. I don't have it. Marcus cried, tears streaming down his face. We spent it. We paid the city. We paid off your interest. Vinny threw Marcus against the wall. The impact knocked a painting loose. Then you pay in blood, Vinny said. He nodded to the giant man behind him. Break his arm. The giant stepped forward. He cracked his knuckles. Brittany, who had been cowering behind the sofa, suddenly stood up. She wasn't looking at Marcus. She was looking at the exit. Wait, she screamed. Vinny turned to look at her. Don't hurt me, Brittany pleaded, her voice high and shrill. I didn't sign the loan. It wasn't me, Brittany, Marcus whispered, looking at his wife. It was him, Brittany yelled, pointing a trembling finger at Marcus. He is the one who forged the signature. He is the one who dealt with you. I just wanted the renovation. I didn't know he was stealing. She took a step toward Vinny, her hands raised in surrender. He is the criminal. Break his legs. Do whatever you want. Just let me go. I have nothing to do with this. Marcus stared at her. The betrayal hit him harder than any fist ever could. This was the woman he had destroyed his family for. This was the woman he had stolen his father's retirement for. And in the moment of truth, she was offering him up as a sacrifice to save her own skin. Brittany, Marcus choked out. I did it for you. And you failed, she shrieked back. You are a loser, Marcus. A weak, pathetic loser. Vinny looked between them. He laughed. A cruel, cold sound. That is cold, lady, Vinny said. Even for me. He turned back to Marcus. But she is right. You signed the paper. You owe the debt. The giant grabbed Marcus's left arm. He twisted it behind his back. Marcus screamed. Time to pay the interest, kid. I tapped Jim on the shoulder in the car. Now Jim. Jim flipped the switch. The red and blue lights of the cruiser exploded into the night. He hit the siren. Just once. A short, sharp whoop that cut through the air like a knife. We jumped out of the car. I didn't run. I walked. I walked with the authority of a man who owns the street. Jim was right beside me, his hand on his holster. We walked through the open front door just as the giant was applying pressure to Marcus's arm. Snap. The sound of the bone breaking was distinct. It was a dry crack like a tree limb in a storm. Marcus screamed, a long, agonizing wail that curled my toes. He dropped to his knees, clutching his arm, his face gray with shock. Police Jim shouted, Step away from him. Now Vinny spun around. When he saw the uniform, his eyes went wide. When he saw me standing next to the chief, his expression shifted from anger to calculation. The giant let go of Marcus and backed away, holding his hands up. Vinny smiled, a tight, forced smile. Chief Miller, Vinny said smoothly, We were just having a business dispute. Nothing to see here. Jim walked up to Vinny. He got right in his face. Breaking and entering Jim listed. Assault. Extortion. I could put you away for 10 years just for tonight, Vinny. Vinny shrugged. He fell. It was an accident. Right, kid. He looked at Marcus, who was curled in a fetal position on the floor, sobbing. I stepped forward. I walked past Vinny. I walked past the giant. I knelt down beside my son. His arm was bent at a sickening angle. He looked up at me through his tears. His eyes were filled with pain and shame. Dad, he whispered. You came. I put a hand on his shoulder. I didn't hug him. I just anchored him. I came, Marcus. I stood up and turned to face Vinny. Get out of my house, Vinny, I said. Vinny sneered. Your house, I thought you were evicted. I took a step closer to him. I am the trustee of the land you are standing on, I said quietly. And you are trespassing. Now Chief Miller here is happy to arrest you for assault. Or you can walk out that door and we can discuss the civil repayment of the debt later. Vinny looked at the chief. He looked at me. He knew when he was beaten. He couldn't collect money from a man in jail. He pointed a finger at Marcus. This isn't over, Vinny hissed. He owes me 150 grand. I don't care if his arm is broken. I don't care if he is in the hospital. The clock is ticking. He looked at Brittany, who was pressing herself against the wall, trying to be invisible. And you, Vinny said to her, you are a piece of work, lady. Remind me never to marry a blonde. Vinny signaled his goon. Let's go. They walked out the door, stepping over the broken glass. The room fell silent except for Marcus's whimpering. Jim holstered his weapon. He looked at the mess. "You want me to call an ambulance, Gus?" "Yes," I said. "And Jim, take a statement from Brittany. I want it on record that she was present during the assault and did nothing to stop it." Brittany gasped. "Augustus, please, I was scared. I didn't mean what I said." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had just offered my son's life to a loan shark. I walked over to her. She flinched, expecting me to hit her. I didn't. I just looked at her with a disgust so profound it felt like I was looking at something rotten. "He broke his arm because of you," I said. "He stole for you. He lied for you. And when the bill came due, you threw him to the wolves." I pointed to the door. "The ambulance is for family," I said. "You aren't family. Get out." Brittany looked at Marcus. He was being tended to by Jim. He didn't look at her. He didn't call her name. He just closed his eyes and wept. "But I live here," Brittany cried. "My name is on the deed." I leaned in close. "The trust just evicted the structure, Brittany. You are trespassing on my land. And since the chief of police is standing right here, I suggest you leave before I press charges for criminal trespass." Brittany looked around the ruined room. She looked at her husband broken on the floor. She looked at the police chief. And she looked at me. She realized finally that she had lost. She grabbed her purse. She didn't say sorry. She didn't ask if Marcus was okay. She just ran. She ran out the door and into the night, her heels clicking on the pavement as she fled the wreckage she had caused. I went back to Marcus. I took off my jacket and draped it over him. "Dad," he whispered, his teeth chattering from shock. She pushed me. She told them it was me. "I know, son," I said softly. "I heard." "I am sorry, Dad. I am so sorry." "Don't talk," I said. "Save your strength." The sirens of the ambulance wailed in the distance. I stroked his hair just like I did when he was a boy and had the flu. "I saved your life tonight, Marcus," I whispered. "But I can't save you from the debt. You signed that paper. You have to pay Vinny back. You have to face the law for the forgery." I looked at his broken arm. "But at least you know the truth now. You know who loves you and who uses you. That is a lesson that cost you $150,000 and a broken bone." I stood up as the paramedics rushed in. It was a high price, but it was the only price that would make him learn. I watched them load him onto the stretcher. I looked around the empty, ruined house. The walls were broken. The furniture was destroyed. The family was shattered. But the foundation was still there, and as I walked out to join Jim in his car, I knew that tomorrow the rebuilding would finally begin. The silence in the mansion was broken only by the frantic tapping of acrylic fingernails on a smartphone screen. It was Monday morning. The sun was shining on the debris in the living room, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air like tiny ghosts. Brittany was sitting on a suitcase in the middle of the foyer. She wasn't planning a renovation anymore. She was planning an escape. I stood on the sidewalk outside, watching through the open front door. The police chief, Jim, stood next to me. We weren't hiding this time. We were waiting for the final act to begin. Brittany looked terrible. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun. Her designer tracksuit was wrinkled and her face was devoid of makeup, revealing the dark circles of a woman who hadn't slept in 72 hours. She was trying to book a flight. I could see the airline app open on her phone screen from where I stood. She was looking for a one-way ticket to Cabo. She thought that if she could just get across the border, the debt to Vinny, the fine from the city, and the lawsuit from the trust would all disappear. But she had forgotten one thing. You can run from debt. You can run from a lawsuit. But you cannot run from a felony embezzlement charge. Inside the house, her phone pinged. It wasn't a text message. It was an email notification. Brittany froze. She opened the email. I knew exactly what it said. I had written the cover letter myself under the letterhead of the forensic accounting firm I had hired 2 days ago. Subject: immediate termination and notice of criminal investigation. I watched her face as she read. Her eyes widened until I thought they might pop out of her head. Her mouth opened in a silent scream. She dropped the phone. It clattered onto the marble floor, the screen cracking, a fitting metaphor for her life. You see, while Brittany was busy destroying my house, I was busy looking into how she paid for her lifestyle. She was a mid-level marketing manager at a fashion house. Her salary was $80,000 a year. Yet she drove a Porsche. She wore Gucci. She took vacations that cost more than her annual income. Math doesn't lie. People do. My private investigator, Saul, had pulled her company's financial records. It was sloppy. She had been creating fake invoices for photo shoot locations and models that didn't exist. She had been funneling company money into a shell account under her maiden name. Over 3 years, she had stolen nearly $400,000. And on Sunday night, I had anonymously forwarded that entire dossier to her CEO and the district attorney's fraud division. The sound of sirens cut through the morning air. Brittany looked up. She scrambled to her feet. She looked at the door. She looked at the back exit. She grabbed the handle of her suitcase, panic seizing her limbs. But it was too late. 2 black sedans and a patrol car screeched to a halt in the driveway, blocking her escape route. Officers in tactical gear spilled out. They didn't knock. They didn't ask nicely. They walked right through the open front door, their boots crunching on the broken glass from Vinny's visit the night before. Brittany came the shout. "Brittany Freeman, police!" Brittany screamed. She dropped the suitcase and backed away until she hit the staircase railing. "No!" she shrieked. "You can't be here! I didn't do anything!" A detective in a cheap suit stepped forward. He held up a pair of handcuffs. The sunlight caught the metal gleaming cold and hard. "Brittany Freeman, you are under arrest for grand larceny, wire fraud, and embezzlement." He didn't wait for her to explain. He grabbed her wrist. He spun her around. Click, click. The sound of the handcuffs locking was the most satisfying sound I had heard in 10 years. It was better than the sound of a gavel. It was the sound of consequences arriving heavy and absolute. Brittany began to thrash. She kicked out at the officer. "Get off me!" she yelled. "It is a mistake. I am innocent." She looked wildly around the room, desperate for a scapegoat. Her eyes landed on me, standing in the doorway. I walked in slowly. I stepped over the threshold of the home I had built. I walked past the detective. I walked right up to her. She stopped struggling. She stared at me, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face, ruining what was left of her dignity. "You," she hissed. "This is you. You did this. I didn't say anything." I just looked at her. "You ruined my life," she screamed, spit flying from her mouth. "You set me up. You told them you are the one who sent the files." The detective looked at me. "Do you know this woman, sir?" I nodded slowly. "She is my son's wife," I said calmly. Or rather, she was. Brittany lunged at me, but the officer held her back. "He is the devil," she shrieked. "He is jealous, because I wanted to improve this dump. He is a bitter old man who couldn't handle that we were taking over." She looked at the detective, pleading. "He manipulated everything. He made Marcus forge the signature. He made me steal the money. It was all him." The detective didn't look impressed. He looked at the ruined walls. He looked at the debris. He looked at the woman in handcuffs who was blaming a 72-year-old man for her own 3-year crime spree. "Ma'am, you have the right to remain silent," the detective said, tightening his grip on her arm. "I suggest you use it." Brittany ignored him. She looked back at me. Her eyes were full of hate, pure, unadulterated hate. "I hate you," she screamed. "I hate this house. I hope it burns down. You took everything from me." I took a step closer. I invaded her personal space. I looked deep into her eyes, past the anger, past the fear, down to the small, broken soul hiding inside. I leaned in close so only she could hear me. "You took nothing, Brittany," I whispered. "And I took nothing. I simply gave you the rope. You were the one who tied the knot." She sobbed a ragged, ugly sound. Why, she whimpered. "Why did you do this? We just wanted the house." I looked around the foyer. I looked at the hole in the wall where she had tried to erase my history. I looked at the spot on the floor where she had stood and laughed while a bulldozer crushed my wife's ashes. I turned back to her. My voice was low, steady, and cold as the grave. "You stole the house, Brittany," I said. "You stole the deed. You thought that because you held the paper, you held the power." I pointed to the floor beneath her feet. "But you forgot one thing. A house needs a foundation. Without a foundation, the walls are just weight. They will always collapse." I looked her up and down from her messy hair to her trembling hands. "You are not a builder, Brittany. You are not an owner. You are just a termite. You eat, and you eat thinking you are growing fat, but all you are doing is bringing the roof down on your own head." She stared at me. Her mouth worked, but no sound came out. The truth of my words hit her harder than the handcuffs. She wasn't a victim. She was a parasite. And I was the exterminator. "Get her out of here," the detective said. The officers dragged her toward the door. She didn't scream anymore. She just hung her head defeated. Her heels dragged across the floor, leaving 2 long scratches in the marble I had laid 30 years ago. I watched them put her in the back of the patrol car. I watched the door slam shut. I watched the car drive away, the lights flashing against the trees of the neighborhood. The house was silent again. The detective lingered for a moment. "Mr. Freeman," he said, "we will need a statement from you regarding the property damage, and we might need you to testify about the financial records you provided." "I will be there, detective," I said. "I have always believed in the law." He nodded and walked out. I was alone. I stood in the center of the foyer. It was a ruin. The air smelled of dust and old perfume. The grand staircase was chipped. The walls were scarred. But it was mine. I walked over to the hole in the wall. I reached out and touched the jagged edge of the limestone. It was cold and rough. I thought about Marcus lying in a hospital bed with a broken arm and a broken life. I thought about Brittany sitting in a holding cell, stripped of her phone and her filters. They had tried to take my empire. They had tried to erase me. But Augustus Freeman doesn't get erased. I picked up a piece of debris from the floor. It was a fragment of the crown molding. I turned it over in my hand. I walked to the kitchen. I opened the back door. The garden was a mess of tread marks and mud. The roses were gone, but the earth was still there. The soil was rich and dark. I knelt down. I dug my fingers into the dirt. I felt the cold ground. "I am sorry, Rose," I whispered. "I am sorry they made a mess." I patted the earth. "But don't worry, the weeds are gone now. The termites are gone." I stood up and brushed the dirt from my hands. I looked back at the house. It was going to take a lot of work. It was going to cost money. It was going to take time. But I had time. I walked back inside and picked up my briefcase. I set it on the kitchen island. I opened it and took out my phone. I dialed a number. "Hello," a voice answered. It was a contractor I had known for 20 years, a man who built things to last. "Mike," I said. "It's Gus." "Gus." Mike sounded surprised. "I haven't heard from you in ages. How are the roses?" "The roses are gone, Mike," I said, "but the ground is ready for replanting." I looked around the shattered kitchen. "And Mike, bring your crew. I have a renovation project. We are going to close up an open concept. We are putting the walls back exactly where they belong." I hung up the phone. I stood there for a moment listening to the silence. It wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. The empire of Augustus had fallen, yes. But empires rise and fall every day. The true test of an emperor isn't whether he can keep the throne. It is whether he can rebuild the kingdom from the ashes. And looking at the sunlight streaming through the broken window, I knew one thing for sure. I still had plenty of bricks left. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and regret. It is a specific kind of smell, sharp and cold, the kind that sticks to the back of your throat and reminds you that you are mortal. I lay in the narrow bed, the sheets scratchy against my skin. My left arm was encased in a heavy plaster cast elevated on a pillow. It throbbed with a dull rhythmic ache, a constant reminder of the sound it made when it snapped. But the pain in my arm was nothing compared to the hollow, gaping void in my chest. It was Wednesday morning, 3 days since Vinny had broken me. 3 days since Brittany had been dragged out of my house in handcuffs, screaming that I was a loser. 3 days since my father had looked at me with eyes that held no anger, only a terrible, crushing pity. I was alone. My phone was on the bedside table. It was silent. No texts from Brittany. She was in the county lockup facing charges that would put her away for 5 years. No texts from my friends. They had all disappeared when the rumors of bankruptcy and fraud started circulating. No texts from the dealership about the Porsche. They had already towed it. I stared at the ceiling tiles. I counted them. 142. I had time to think in here. I had time to replay the last month of my life. The eviction, the bulldozer, the forgery, the loan shark. Every decision I had made out of fear. Fear of losing Brittany. Fear of being poor. Fear of being ordinary. And now I was less than ordinary. I was a criminal with a broken arm and a bank account that was negative $400,000. The door opened. I didn't turn my head. I expected a nurse with another tray of tasteless food. Or maybe a detective coming to take my statement about the assault. "Hello, Marcus." The voice was deep. familiar. It was the voice of the man I had betrayed. I turned slowly. My dad stood in the doorway. He wasn't wearing his gardening clothes. He was wearing a suit, a charcoal gray suit that looked expensive and intimidating. He held a brown paper bag in one hand and his old leather briefcase in the other. He didn't smile. He didn't rush to the bedside to hug me. He walked into the room and pulled the visitor's chair close to the bed. He sat down, placing the briefcase on the floor and the paper bag on the table. "How is the arm?" he asked. His tone was neutral, like he was asking about the weather. "It hurts," I whispered. My voice was raspy. I haven't spoken to anyone in 2 days. "Dr. Evans says it is a clean break," Dad said. "He says you will need 6 weeks in the cast, then physical therapy." He reached into the bag and pulled out a container of soup. Chicken noodle, homemade. I could tell by the color of the broth. "Eat," he said. "You look like a ghost." I tried to sit up. The pain flared in my shoulder. I winced. Dad didn't help me. He watched me struggle until I managed to prop myself up against the pillows. I opened the container with my good hand. The smell of the soup filled the room, chasing away the antiseptic stench. It smelled like home. It smelled like the kitchen before Brittany tore down the wall. I took a spoonful. It was warm. I swallowed it, and suddenly I was crying. I couldn't stop. The tears just spilled out hot and fast. "I am sorry, Dad," I choked out between sobs. "I am so sorry." Dad didn't say anything. He let me cry. He sat there, hands folded in his lap, waiting for the storm to pass. I ruined everything I said, wiping my face with the rough sheet. I let her destroy Mom's garden. I signed your name. I stole your money. I am a monster. Dad looked at me. He leaned forward slightly. "You are not a monster, Marcus," he said. "You are a fool. There is a difference. A monster enjoys the destruction. A fool just doesn't see the cliff until he is already driven off it." He picked up the spoon and handed it back to me. "Finish the soup. We have business to discuss." I ate the soup. Every swallow felt like penance. When the container was empty, Dad reached down and opened his briefcase. He pulled out a single sheet of paper. It wasn't a lawsuit. It wasn't a police report. It was a ledger. "I paid your hospital bill this morning," he said. $7,000. I looked down. "Thank you. I will pay you back." "I know you will," he said. "Because I also paid the city fine, $50,000. And I settled the interest with Vinny to keep him away from your hospital room. That was another $20,000. He tapped the paper. Plus the $400,000 you stole from my retirement account. Plus the cost of the contractor I hired yesterday to repair the structural damage to the house. He looked me in the eye. "You owe me $680,000, Marcus. That is the cost of your marriage." I closed my eyes. It was an impossible number. I had no job. Brittany had gotten me fired from the marketing firm when her embezzlement scandal broke. I had no car. I had nowhere to live. "I can't pay it, Dad," I whispered. "I have nothing." "I know," Dad said. He sat back in the chair. "So here is the situation. Brittany is going to prison. She won't be coming back to Highland Avenue. The house is currently being restored. I am moving back in tomorrow." He paused. "I need a gardener." I blinked. "A gardener?" "Yes," he continued. "The last one was fired. He let a woman with a bulldozer destroy 30 years of work. I need someone to replant the roses. I need someone to mix the cement for the wall. I need someone to scrub the floors where the muddy boots walked." He looked at my cast. "Obviously, you can't do heavy lifting for 6 weeks, but you can weed with one hand. You can water. You can paint." "Dad, I don't understand. I am offering you a job, Marcus. Minimum wage, $15 an hour. Every penny of it goes toward your debt. I will deduct room and board." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot. "You have nowhere to go, Marcus. You can sleep in your old room, the one with the single bed. Not the master suite. That is mine. You will eat at my table, but you will cook the meals. You will live in my house, but you will not be the owner. You will be the help." He turned back to face me. His face was hard. "You wanted to be the master of the house, Marcus. You wanted the title. You wanted the glory. But you weren't willing to do the work, so now you are going to learn the work. You are going to learn what it feels like to sweat for $1. You are going to learn what it feels like to build something instead of tearing it down." I stared at him. He was offering me a lifeline, but it was a lifeline made of barbed wire. He was offering me a chance to come home, but as a servant in the kingdom, I thought I had conquered. And if I say no, I asked. Dad picked up his briefcase. Then the door is right there, he said, pointing to the exit. You can walk out of here. You can try to find an apartment with an eviction on your record and a felony fraud charge hanging over your head. You can try to explain to Vinny why the payments stopped. He walked to the door. It is your choice, Marcus. Freedom with nothing or a home with hard labor. He put his hand on the doorknob. But know this. If you come back, there are no free rides, no borrowing the car, no credit cards, no parties. You wake up at 6 a.m., you work until sundown, you pay your debt. And maybe, just maybe, after you have replanted every single rose bush your wife destroyed, you might earn back a little bit of the respect you lost. He opened the door. I looked at the empty hallway. I looked at my broken arm. I thought about the cold, lonely nights in a jail cell that awaited Brittany. I looked at my father. The man I had underestimated. The man I had tried to rob. He was giving me the one thing I didn't deserve. He was giving me a foundation to stand on even if I had to pour the concrete myself. Dad, I said. He stopped. He didn't turn around. I will take the job. He stood there for a moment. I saw his shoulders relax just a fraction. Good, he said softly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. He tossed it onto the bed. It clattered next to my broken hand. It was the key to the back door. The servant's entrance. Be there at 8 a.m. tomorrow, he said. Don't be late. And Marcus. Yes, Dad. Wear boots. We have a lot of mud to clear out. He walked out and closed the door. I lay back on the pillows. I picked up the key. It was cold and heavy. It wasn't the key to a mansion. It was the key to a work shed. I closed my fingers around it. For the first time in months, I felt safe. I was broken, yes. I was in debt. I was humiliated. But I was going home. I looked at the empty soup container. I realized then that my father hadn't just saved me from Vinny. He had saved me from myself. He was going to make a man out of me, even if it took the rest of my life. I closed my eyes and let the exhaustion take me. Tomorrow the real work would begin. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to look for a shortcut. I was going to pick up a shovel. It took 6 months to clear the dust. 6 months of hammer saws and the smell of wet paint. But this time the noise wasn't destructive. It was the sound of healing, the sound of a broken bone setting properly after being reset. I stood on the sidewalk looking up at the house at 10 Highland Avenue. The red tag was gone. The orange sticker of shame had been scraped off the glass, leaving no trace of the violation that had almost cost me everything. The hole in the limestone wall, the gaping wound that Brittany had inflicted in her arrogance, was sealed. I had hired a master mason, a man from the old country who knew how to cut stone so perfectly that you couldn't tell where the old ended and the new began. But I didn't restore the house to its former glory just to sit in it alone. I didn't spend my savings fixing the roof just to listen to the echoes of a lonely old man in the hallways. I realized during those nights in the motel room that my story wasn't unique. There were thousands of Augustuses out there. Thousands of seniors who had built empires, raised families, and then found themselves marginalized, tricked or abused by the very people they had nurtured. I walked up the driveway. The bronze plaque by the front gate was new. It shone in the morning sun. It didn't say the Freeman residence anymore. It read, the Rose Freeman Legal Aid Center for the Elderly. I opened the front door. The foyer was bustling. It wasn't filled with party guests drinking champagne or influencers taking selfies. It was filled with young, hungry attorneys. Not the sharks I used to work with, but the good ones. The ones who still believed that the law was a shield, not a sword. They were sitting at desks we had set up in the living room, talking on phones, reviewing contracts, and helping elderly clients who had been scammed by contractors, ignored by insurance companies, or manipulated by greedy relatives. I walked through the room, nodding to the receptionist. She was a retired paralegal named Sarah, who worked for free because she believed in the mission. "Good morning, Mr. Freeman," she said, handing me a stack of messages. "Good morning, Sarah," I replied. I walked into what used to be the dining room. It was now a conference room. The long mahogany table where Marcus and Brittany had signed that predatory contract with Silas was now covered in files. Real files. Cases that mattered. I didn't take the head of the table. I didn't need to. I had my own office in the back and the small study overlooking the garden. That was where I did my real work. That was where I taught the young lawyers how to spot a loophole from a mile away. That was where I taught them the Phoenix Protocol. But today, I didn't go to my office immediately. I walked through the kitchen and opened the back door. The air smelled of mulch and blooming flowers. The scars of the bulldozer were gone. The tread marks that had crushed Rose's spirit had been tilled under. In their place, the earth was dark and rich. I walked out onto the patio. I sat down in my favorite wicker chair. Duke, my golden retriever, trotted over and collapsed at my feet with a happy sigh. He was older now, a little slower, but he was content. He knew we were home. I poured myself a cup of tea from the pot I had brought out. Earl Grey. Hot. I looked out at the garden. It wasn't fully grown back yet. A garden takes time. You can't rush nature just like you can't rush justice. But the rose bushes were replanted, 200 of them, small, green, and full of promise. In the distance near the back fence, the hum of a lawnmower cut through the quiet afternoon. I watched the man pushing the machine. He was wearing heavy work boots, stained jeans, and a t-shirt that was soaked with sweat. He wasn't wearing an Italian suit. He wasn't wearing a Rolex. He was wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes to block the sun. It was Marcus. He pushed the mower with a steady, rhythmic determination. He turned at the fence line, pulled the machine back, and started the next row. His left arm, the one that had been broken, was healed now. It was stronger than before. The cast had come off months ago, but the work hadn't stopped. He looked different. The softness was gone. The flabby, pampered look of a man who lived on credit and lies had melted away, replaced by the lean muscle of a laborer. He looked tired, but he didn't look defeated. He stopped the mower to wipe his forehead with a rag from his back pocket. He looked up and saw me sitting on the patio. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the expanse of green grass. In the old days, he would have waved dismissively, or he would have come over to ask for money. Or he would have complained that the work was too hard, that it was beneath him. But today, he just nodded. It was a small nod, a respectful nod, the nod of one man acknowledging another man's presence. I lifted my teacup in return. He put the rag back in his pocket, gripped the handle of the mower, and went back to work. He was paying his debt. Every hour he worked, every bead of sweat that fell onto the soil was $1 subtracted from the $680,000 he owed me. At $15 an hour, he would be mowing this lawn for the rest of his life. And he knew it. But he hadn't left. He hadn't run away. He hadn't tried to forge another check. Brittany was gone. She was serving a 5-year sentence in a minimum security facility 3 hours north. Marcus had visited her once. He came back silent and pale. He never went back. He filed for divorce the next day, using one of the young lawyers in my living room to handle the paperwork. He realized finally that she hadn't loved him. She had loved the idea of him. And when the idea went bankrupt, her love went with it. I took a sip of my tea. People ask me if I'm happy. They ask me if I enjoy having my house turned into an office. They ask me if I am angry that my retirement turned into a second career. I tell them I have never been more at peace. I looked at the garden. I looked at the roses reaching for the sun. I looked at my son sweating in the heat, learning the value of labor for the first time in his 35 years. I hadn't just saved the house. I had saved him. It was a brutal salvation, yes. I had to break his arm to save his soul. I had to bankrupt him to make him rich in the things that matter. I had to strip him of his entitlement so he could find his dignity. He wasn't the master of the house. He was the gardener. But there is honor in being a gardener. There is honor in nurturing something, in keeping the weeds at bay, in making sure the roots are strong. I put the cup down on the saucer. The china clinked softly. Duke raised his head and barked at a squirrel running along the fence. "Quiet, boy," I whispered, scratching him behind the ears. "Let him run. We have enough to worry about." I watched Marcus finish the row. He shut off the engine. The silence rushed back in, filled with the chirping of birds and the rustle of leaves. He walked toward the patio, carrying a bag of grass clippings. He stopped at the bottom of the steps. He looked up at me. "The south lawn is done, Dad," he said. His voice was rough, parched. "Good job, Marcus," I said. He hesitated. He looked at the teapot. Is there any left?" he asked. I looked at the empty cup on the table. Then I looked at the full pot. "There is a clean cup in the kitchen," I said. "If you wash your hands, you can pour yourself some." He smiled. It was a small, tired, genuine smile. The first real smile I had seen on his face in years. "Thanks, Dad." He walked into the house. I heard the water running in the sink. I heard the clinking of a spoon. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the chair. The sun was warm on my face. This was my legacy. Not the millions in the bank. Not the reputation as a shark. Not even the stone walls of this house. My legacy was the young lawyers inside fighting for the helpless. My legacy was the rose bushes blooming over Rose's ashes. And my legacy was the man in the kitchen washing the dirt off his hands, finally ready to sit at the table, not as a prince, but as a person. I opened my eyes. I looked at the sky. "We made it," Rose, I whispered. The foundation held. I picked up my tea again. It was getting cold, but it still tasted sweet. It tasted like freedom. A legacy is not built on what you take, but on what you preserve. My son and his wife saw my silence as weakness, and my kindness as stupidity. They forgot that the shade they enjoyed was cast by trees I planted decades ago. Entitlement is a dangerous drug. It makes you believe you deserve the harvest without ever holding a hoe. I didn't fight back to keep a pile of bricks. I fought back to teach them that you cannot inherit dignity, you have to earn it. Respect the roots, or watch the branches wither. If this story resonated with you, if you believe that justice is best served cold, and that family loyalty must be earned, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, what is the most important lesson you would want to leave as your legacy? I read every single one. Until next time, keep your foundation strong and your eyes open. Goodbye.